amid clusters of rundown, low-rise rural self-built houses. Weeds ran rampant. The place had clearly been deserted for a very long time. Some houses stood with front doors hanging wide open and windows riddled with holes. Others had their doors tightly shut, their windows completely boarded up, not a sliver of light able to seep through. Silence. Dead stillness. Only the rustle of wind stirring fallen leaves could be heard. Inside a two-story private house sealed behind an iron gate, the second floor lay plunged in total darkness, its windows boarded over with planks and tattered rags. In one corner, a room that looked like a storage closet was equally dark and utterly quiet. The only difference was a single bed inside, upon which lay a huddled human-shaped figure. Like everything else, the figure was motionless. Not even the slightest rise and fall of the chest from breathing could be seen. It looked for all the world as though the person was dead. All of a sudden, without any warning, the figure thrashed and convulsed violently, as if suffering an epileptic seizure. This, alongside a sharp gasp of inhaled air, everything fell quiet once more. Chen Hao, the man who had looked like a corpse, opened his eyes. His gaze held 3 parts confusion, 3 parts shock, and 4 parts bewilderment. I was burning the midnight oil at work, wasn't I? It was 1:30 in the morning. A client called and asked me to remotely troubleshoot a problem. I'd already pulled 3 all-nighters in a row, and then everything just went black. Wait, where did these extra memories come from? Blue star, black fog, nuclear bombs, monsters, bizarre natural disasters. What on earth is all this? Am I still on Earth? My head hurts. Hiss. Gasping, Chen Hao held his head and sat up, finally processing the foreign memories flooding his mind. So I've transmigrated. Soul transmigration. Transmigration stories happen all the time online, and now it's my turn. But why does everyone else get reborn as the son of a mighty ruler or the child of a wealthy merchant? Why is my situation so messed up? As a modern young man, Chen Hao had read plenty of web novels and watched countless short-form videos. He adapted surprisingly quickly to the idea of transmigration. His only regret was that he had graduated barely 2 years before, full of ambition to chase his dreams, only to die from overwork. Thankfully, this body also belongs to someone named Chen Hao. I was an orphan back on Earth, so I have no family left to grieve for me. Drawing on the original owner's memories, he felt around in the dark and unlocked the latch on the storage room's single iron door. Chen Hao moved slowly toward the boarded-up window. Following his memories, he carefully pulled loose one strip of cloth stuffed into gaps between the planks. The sun was setting. Orange-red twilight spilled over the crumbling buildings, the ground, and overgrown weeds. Yet even bathed in sunlight, a thin layer of grayish mist hung in the air. It was not pitch black, merely pale gray, as though its concentration was low. This defied all logic. Sunlight should have burned ordinary mist away long ago, just as he feared. The last flicker of hope inside Chen Hao died away. Night is drawing near. According to the original host's memories, these are the final days of the Black Fog Surge. Every door and window must be tightly sealed after dark. No activity can take place, otherwise we will draw attacks from black fog monsters. But sealing ourselves off physically only blocks some dangers. Certain threats cannot be kept out by barriers alone. Chen Hao recalled how the original owner had died, possession by a black fog wraith. Everything had changed after the strange black fog descended upon Blue Star. Countless grotesque monsters poured forth from it and shattered human civilization. Humanity's steel weapons and gunpowder lost much of their effectiveness against these abominations. The monsters had incredibly tough hides, and bullets and explosives seemed 10 times less powerful when striking them. Even when missiles at last killed a towering beast dozens of meters tall, a similar creature would emerge minutes later, either resurrected by the fog or simply one among countless others lurking within it. Worse still were the horrifying, incorporeal monsters, such as the Black Fog Wraiths. They appeared and vanished without warning and could pass straight through solid walls. Nobody knew where they came from, nor how many existed. Humans understood almost nothing about them. At the cost of heavy military casualties, humanity had at last pieced together fragments of the monsters' habits. 1. Most monsters only hunted at night. Outside heavily polluted zones, the black fog spread only after dark, and monsters could not stray far from it. 2. Heat sources attracted monsters. Bright high-wattage lights, open flames, even body heat gave away human presence. Larger, denser groups drew stronger monsters. 4. Fog crystals. After the Black Fog catastrophe, certain ores mutated into strange black crystals speckled with faint silver flecks. Black fog monsters hated these crystals, and the crystals could harm them. 6. Thinking this over, Hao pulled 2 black crystals out of his pocket. Neither held any silver glimmer, looking completely drained of energy. The previous night, when the original host had been assaulted by a wraith, these 2 crystals had flared silver and driven the creature away for a short time, but at the cost of burning out completely. The night was long. Once the crystals were spent, there had been nothing left to save the original host when the wraith returned. Hao gritted his teeth. Thanks to the inherited memories, he knew exactly how deadly night could be. Without his life-saving crystals, what would he do if another wraith showed up? The wraith that had killed the former occupant might not return, yet tonight marked the final day of the Black Fog Surge. During the surge, nights grew far more dangerous. Powerful monsters that normally avoided isolated areas could roam freely, wraiths included. His stomach rumbled loudly. Damn it, food comes first. I need to fill my belly while I still have time. Better to die full than starving. Pushing thoughts of mortal danger temporarily aside, Hao turned to the problem of food and water. He found a flashlight, switched it on, and headed downstairs. He filled a large bottle from the tap connected to the rooftop water tank, then climbed back to the second-floor storage room and bolted the iron door shut behind him. He set the flashlight upright on the floor, dragged a large pack of compressed biscuits and a bag of sausages from beneath the bed. He ate ravenously, finishing biscuits in a few bites and sausages in 2 mouthfuls. Food tasted wonderful when you were starving. He gulped down several big mouthfuls of water, burped, and patted his stomach in satisfaction. He flopped backward onto the bed and closed his eyes. Right then, a soft flash of white light appeared behind his closed eyelids. Hao's eyes flew open. The glow persisted, coalescing into a small panel floating in midair directly within his field of vision. It had a plain white frame with white text, overlaying whatever his eyes saw, materializing out of thin air. Along the top of the frame ran tiny text, All Things Enhancement Panel Mini V.1.0.0. 2 slots resembling inventory boxes sat inside the panel, with a hammer-shaped button at the bottom. It was unbelievably crude, almost comically bare bones. He blinked and rubbed his eyes. Even with his eyes shut, the panel remained visible. Hao realized what he was seeing. Heart pounding with excitement, he shot upright with a kip up and began to examine the panel. Well-versed in web novel tropes, he quickly accepted the mysterious interface. Whether it was a blessing or a curse, he was going to try it out. After experimenting for a while, he picked up his half-empty water bottle off the floor. He focused his mind on the bottle, and soon a miniature image of it appeared inside one of the panel slots. A mental prompt surfaced in his awareness. Half-filled water bottle condition, slightly tainted, bacterial growth, additional enhancement materials. None enhancement available. Yes enhancement duration. 10 minutes. Joy surged through Hao. Activate. Come on. Start enhancing. He made odd gestures and mumbled strange phrases, hoping to trigger some hidden mechanism, yet the panel did nothing. After looking foolish for quite some time, he worked out how it worked. Concentrating, he mentally pictured an index finger tapping the little hammer icon on the panel. Roughly 3 hours remained before total darkness fell. 10 minutes was a short enough wait. 10 minutes passed quickly. Hao stared intently at the water bottle sitting on the floor as enhancement neared completion. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 2, 1. It's happening. The bottle flickered faintly. In a strobing instant, the slightly contaminated water inside its old plastic container transformed into a brand-new factory-sealed bottle of mineral water. Hao stepped forward and picked it up. Information flooded into his mind. Brand-new factory-sealed mineral water. Replenishes water and trace minerals. He studied the unfamiliar packaging. He twisted the cap. It was unopened. Unscrewing it, he sniffed. No unpleasant odor remained. He took a small sip. The water tasted fresh and smooth with a gentle mineral note. It was ordinary mineral water, yet it seemed wonderful compared to the mildly tainted water he had drunk before. He drank most of the bottle in huge gulps and set it down contentedly. Hao walked to the storage room iron door and placed his palm against it. A translucent projection of the door appeared inside the inventory slot. Low-quality iron door condition. Old, heavily rusted additional enhancement materials. None enhancement available. Yes enhancement duration. 2 hours 30 minutes. 2.5 hours. Total darkness would arrive in less than 3 hours. Physical monsters posed a genuine threat. Yet incorporeal wraiths were far deadlier. Enhancing the door alone would not stop them. He set aside the idea of upgrading the door for the moment and pulled his 2 drained fog crystals from his pocket. He focused his attention on one of them. The enhancement panel popped up. Primary grade fog crystal condition. Energy depleted additional enhancement materials. None enhancement available. Yes enhancement duration. 60 minutes. It worked. Chunhao rejoiced inwardly. He tried placing both crystals into the enhancement slot simultaneously. The system allowed it. Using two identical items at once gave the same feedback, except duration rose to 2 hours. Next, he attempted putting various items into the additional material slot: bed sheets, shoes, the water bottle, compressed biscuits, a small knife, the flashlight. After repeated testing, he learned that not every object qualified as supplementary enhancement material. Materials needed some degree of compatibility with the target item. At present, only his water bottle and flashlight met the requirement among his supplies. He still did not fully understand what supplementary materials did. Not wanting to waste time, he chose to enhance one fog crystal first. A faint flash of white light flickered across his hand. Enhancement countdown. 59 minutes 59 seconds. While the enhancement ran, Chunhao prepared for the coming night. He unlocked the iron door. By faint streaks of light filtering through gaps in the boarded windows, he quickly inspected the second-floor sitting room, main bedroom, 2 secondary bedrooms, and bathroom. He locked and barred every window and door he could. He piled furniture and debris to block most access to the staircase, leaving only a narrow passage. He hurried downstairs, refilled another large 2.5-liter bottle with water, and set it beside the stairs for easy carrying upstairs. He checked all ground floor doors and windows, plugging every gap he could find. Sneaking over to the main entrance, he peered through the peephole to confirm the outside was safe, then unlocked and opened the front door. He stepped out into the courtyard and inspected the metal window grills. Satisfied, he went back inside, locked the door, and propped 2 solid wooden poles, 1.5 meters long and 10 centimeters thick, against it. Only then did he return to the staircase, pick up his water bottle, and go back upstairs. He squeezed through the cluttered sitting room and blocked off the remaining narrow passage with more debris. Returning to the storage closet, he shut and bolted the iron door firmly. He glanced at the enhancement panel. 29 minutes 16 seconds. He switched off the flashlight. The small room sank into absolute blackness, wrapped in oppressive silence once again. Chunhao lay back on the bed to rest, conserving his energy for the sleepless night ahead while waiting for enhancement to finish. 29 minutes slipped by. He pulled the fog crystal out of his pocket and turned the flashlight on, staring unblinkingly. 15, 14, 13, 3, 2, 1. Enhancement completed. The crystal blurred for an instant. Its dull black surface now sparkled with silver flecks once more. Information entered his mind. Fully charged primary-grade fog crystal. Emits light that repels black fog monsters. Chunhao noticed the description only stated the crystal repelled monsters, without dealing meaningful damage to them. No wonder the original host still died in the end. A bitter smile crossed his face. He had hoped for a decisive weapon, yet it was only a deterrent. He refocused his mind on the crystal. The panel refreshed. Primary-grade fog crystal condition. Fully charged additional enhancement materials. None enhancement available. Yes enhancement duration. 60 minutes relief washed over him. It can be enhanced again, and still only takes 1 hour. The sky will be dim before the hour is out. I have plenty of time. If a charged primary crystal could repel monsters, what would a further upgraded one do? Perhaps it would actively harm them, or exert powerful intimidation. Hope flared inside Chunhao. Without hesitation, he mentally tapped the hammer icon on the panel. The hour ticked away while Chunhao lay quietly. The fog crystal resting on the bed flickered when enhancement concluded. The crystal, once the size of a kumquat, had grown to the size of an egg. Turning the flashlight on, Chunhao held it up for close inspection. It was larger, and its interior held far more shimmering silver streaks. Item information flooded his awareness. Fully charged intermediate-grade fog crystal. Its light inflicts harm on black fog monsters and intimidates low-ranked ones. I knew it. I guessed right. I'm not going to die tonight. Chunhao wanted to laugh out loud, yet he stifled all sound, daring not make noise. Night had fallen faster than anticipated. While he had rested, noises had drifted continuously from outdoors. Faint scuttling footsteps, heavy slow tramping, and once, an eerie, inhuman howl that sounded almost like mocking laughter echoed through the darkness. Naturally, he felt apprehensive. Fortunately, whatever roamed outside did not seem aware of his presence, or had no interest in him for the moment. He refocused on his intermediate-grade fog crystal. The panel updated. Intermediate-grade fog crystal condition. Sufficient energy additional enhancement materials. None enhancement available. Yes enhancement duration. 6 hours. It can still be upgraded, yet the time requirement has grown too long. Listening to the strange sounds outside, Chunhao considered what he ought to enhance next. His intermediate-grade fog crystal gave him both defense and offense, yet he only possessed one. If monsters set their sights on this building, even if he wounded a few, sheer numbers would overwhelm him. Most monsters were physical creatures, and physical barriers still worked against them. Therefore, Chen Hao stood quietly and placed his palm against the iron door. Low-quality iron door condition. Old, heavily rusted additional enhancement materials. None enhancement available. Yes enhancement duration. 2 hours 30 minutes. The values remained unchanged. This time Chen Hao intended to test the supplementary enhancement function. From a corner, he retrieved several steel rebars, rolls of iron wire, and thin steel sheets. Keeping one hand on the door and the other on the pile of steel supplies, he focused his will. The iron door appeared in the primary enhancement slot, and the stack of steel materials appeared inside the supplementary material slot. Panel text updated immediately. Low-quality iron door condition. Old, heavily rusted additional enhancement materials. Pile of steel supplies enhancement available. Yes enhancement duration. 3 hours 30 minutes. 1 extra hour. Start enhancement right away. Mentally, he tapped the hammer button. After multiple operations with the panel, Chen Hao felt his power of concentration sharpen. His thoughts seemed clearer, though he could not be certain it was not merely his imagination. He waited patiently for the door's enhancement to finish. He dared not relax. Leaning against the bed in the dim glow of the flashlight, he stayed alert, yet avoided exhausting himself. Time dragged on. 3.5 hours finally passed. Chen Hao watched the door expectantly. It shimmered once. The old brown rust-covered sheet metal door transformed into matte silver, gray steel. Heavy and solid, it resisted every push. Its frame had been reinforced and welded tight, reinforced with multiple horizontal steel bars. The sturdy barrier could withstand tremendous force and could hardly be broken down from outside. A description surfaced in his thoughts. Reinforced iron door. Constructed from heavy steel plates with specially strengthened frame and horizontal reinforcing bars. Boasts outstanding impact resistance. Extremely difficult to breach from outside. Staring at the vastly improved door, Chen Hao felt a strong sense of safety welling up inside him. Compared with the flimsy original door, its strength had increased many times over. He believed it could hold against monster assaults long enough for dawn to arrive. Once the door finished upgrading, Chen Hao wasted no time and began enhancing his remaining drained primary, grade fog crystal. Enhancement countdown. 59 minutes 59 seconds. He watched the timer tick downward. Outside, unearthly cries continued to ring out. At one point, a gigantic monster lumbered past the house, producing thunderous noise that felt dangerously close. Still, nothing broke through. When that crystal finished charging, Chen Hao immediately started enhancing it a second time, another 60-minute cycle. More fog crystals would be invaluable once they survived this night. According to the original host's memories, more could be located nearby. 58 minutes passed. Enhancement was nearly complete. Prolonged vigilance wore Chen Hao down. Since nothing terrible had happened for hours, his mental guard slipped a little. He was growing bored when a bone, chilling cold drifted through the walls. The cold sensation passed straight through the ground, floor front door, as if no barrier existed at all. It glided up the staircase, passed unhindered through all the piled debris in the sitting room, and headed straight for the storage room where Chen Hao sheltered. It moved with terrifying speed. In mere seconds it reached the storage room door and seeped through the reinforced iron door without resistance. The instant the icy presence entered the room, the flashlight dimmed noticeably, its light seemingly absorbed. A ghostly humanoid figure materialized. Wrapped in tattered white robes, hair hanging down to hide its features, it held ghastly pale hands outstretched, lunging straight for Chen Hao. The moment the light dimmed, Chen Hao reacted. At the sight of the apparition he knew exactly what it was, a black fog wraith. It ignored physical barriers and moved with blinding speed. Ordinary humans stood almost no chance once it drew near. Recognizing the familiar wraith, Chen Hao burned with frustration. It had killed the original host, and now it had come for him. He could not accept being killed so easily. He would fight back, and try to hurt the creature even if he might die. Most ordinary people confronted by such horrifying supernatural terror would freeze, paralyzed by fear. Yet facing death, Chen Hao's instinct was to resist. In the blink of an eye, the spectral shadow passed through the reinforced iron door and lunged straight for Chen Hao. There was nowhere to hide inside the cramped storage room. Even if there had been room to dodge, Chen Hao possessed only an ordinary human physique. His speed stood no chance against the spectral shadow. So Chen Hao did not move at all. There was no point. He stood still as though paralyzed by terror, quietly awaiting his death. If the spectral shadow possessed consciousness and intelligence, it might have let out an evil cackle, toying with its prey's fragile mind, prolonging its victim's fear before delivering death. But this spectral shadow appeared to have no such capacity. At the very least, this one did not. All it held was a primal urge to slaughter every living thing. In less than a second, the shadow closed the distance and reached Chen Hao. Pale, ashen hands shot forward and clamped tight around his throat. A strange, icy chill flooded through Chen Hao's body. Heat drained out of him rapidly, pouring through the shadow's hands like water rushing out of an open faucet. Yet as a well-known physicist from Blue Planet once put it, when fate has you by the throat, it means your throat is also gripping fate's hands. The instant his neck was seized, Chen Hao swung hard with his right hand clutching the intermediate mist crystal. The moment his skin made contact with the spectral shadow, the intermediate mist crystal in his palm burst forth with dazzling silver radiance, blazing like a tiny silver sun. A shrill scream rang out. The semi-transparent shadow, woven form of the monster twisted and convulsed violently, rippling across its whole body. The hands squeezing Chen Hao's throat loosened at once. Freed from the hold, Chen Hao felt the frigid supernatural pressure lift off his body. He watched the writhing monster, screaming in agony as it tried to pull away. A lopsided, grim smile tugged at the corner of Chen Hao's mouth. You wretched abomination. Feeling afraid now? Today I will show you exactly what cruelty means. Keeping his right hand planted within the shadow's body, Chen Hao fumbled quickly inside his trousers pocket with his left hand and pulled out a second freshly charged intermediate mist crystal. Sensing mortal danger, the spectral shadow thrashed with desperate force. Bone, chilling cold rolled off its body, raising goosebumps all over Chen Hao's skin. Without a fraction of hesitation, Chen Hao curled his left hand into a claw-like grip around the crystal and drove it hard toward the shadow's chest. Blinding silver light erupted once more from the monster's torso. The spectral shadow let out a high-pitched shriek of torment. For more than 10 seconds, Chen Hao maintained his stance, one hand embedded high and the other pressed low against the monster's body. Then the shadow's convulsions abruptly ceased. Wisps of black-gray mist streamed off its dissipating figure, until nothing remained but a pile of fine ash, which faded away entirely. The silver glow faded from the two mist crystals as the monster perished. Drained of strength, Chen Hao collapsed heavily onto the bed, gasping for air. The rush of adrenaline faded, giving way to overwhelming exhaustion. The whole assault and counterattack had taken barely more than 10 seconds, less than half a minute in total. Yet Chen Hao felt utterly drained both physically and mentally. That creature must feed on the life energy of living beings. No other reason I'd be this worn out after mere seconds. This is definitely not on my account. After resting for several minutes, Chen Hao recovered enough to stand. He stepped over to the pile of ash left by the dead monster and poked it carefully with a small knife. It was only ash, no crystal remnants dropped. He pulled on several layers of disposable gloves and prodded the substance with one fingertip. Nothing adverse happened. Unsure of what the ash might be useful for, he scooped it into a plastic bag and sealed it. Just as Chen Hao thought the crisis was over, scraping, gnawing noises echoed from outside the door. Similar to rats chewing on wooden boards in the dead of night. That cannot be rats. Ever since the apocalypse descended, hardly any ordinary wildlife survives. All living creatures get hunted down without mercy by these black fog monsters. Memories belonging to his previous host surfaced abruptly in his mind. He knew exactly what was outside. Mistworms. Among all black fog monsters, mistworms were the most common, existing in countless varieties and numbers. Some grew as huge as tanks, while others were no bigger than cockroaches. Still, everyone shared the inherent traits of fog-born abominations and were nothing like ordinary insects. Damn it, the spectral shadow's death cries drew them here. This is also a period of fog, storm unrest, so mistworms are far more active. That gnawing sound must be them chewing through the wooden planks covering the second-floor windows. The wooden barriers would not hold for long. Chen Hao's brief sense of relief vanished, replaced by sharp tension once again. He inspected his two intermediate mist crystals. Much of their silver luminous energy had been expended fighting the shadow. He focused his mind, and a system panel materialized before his eyes. Intermediate mist crystal. Status: over half energy consumed. Attached enhancement materials: none. Enhanceable: yes. Enhancement duration: 1 hour 30 minutes. Enhancing a primary mist crystal takes 1 hour. Fully recharging an intermediate one takes 3 hours. Enhance. Enhancement commencing. Time remaining: 1 hour 29 minutes 59 seconds. Danger pressed in. and he had no other options. Staring at the countdown on the panel, Shunhao felt deeply grateful he had reinforced the iron door earlier. Looking at its solid build, a small measure of reassurance settled over his anxious heart. Mistworms need time to gnaw through wood. They should struggle with this reinforced door. My real worry is whether all this noise will draw other black fog monsters. Shunhao's knowledge of these creatures remained limited. He could only do the best he could with what he knew. Scratching and rustling sounds from outside drew steadily nearer. He slowed his breathing, trying his best to mask his presence. He had no idea whether it worked, but the instinct to comfort himself was human. The noises stopped right outside his door. The mistworm seemed stymied by the iron barrier, unable to bite through it. Clangs and heavy thuds echoed non-stop. Unable to gnaw their way inside, the worms resorted to slamming against the door. Listening to the continuous impacts, yet seeing the door hold firm, Shunhao's tight shoulders relaxed a little. So be it. Unless something far stronger comes along, they cannot break through. And if something far stronger does show up, there is nothing I can do anyway. Might as well rest. Already drained after having his vitality sapped by the spectral shadow, worn thin by repeated surges of panic, Shunhao lay back on the bed and let himself rest. Time slipped by. Gradually, the pounding from outside faded completely. Shunhao pulled a cartoon tiger-themed digital watch out from under his pillow. The previous owner had found it inside an abandoned toy shop and kept it there. He had only just remembered its existence. He glanced down. 6:30. Day had broken. The black fog receded, and monsters withdrew. Still, to play it safe, he resolved to wait until 10 o'clock before venturing out. He would catch up on sleep he had missed the night before. Stretching with a long yawn, he ate a quick, simple meal and sorted through his thoughts to lay out his plans for the day. The small settlement where Shunhao took shelter was called Blackrock Mound. It had already been in decline before the apocalypse. Most original villagers had moved to large cities. Blackrock Mound had no valuable local produce apart from a type of black ore. After the end of the world, that ore mutated into mist crystals. Survivors fleeing the cities had chanced upon this secret and settled here, forming a tiny community. Shunhao was one of them. According to his memories, roughly 20-odd households remained in Blackrock Mound, certainly no more than 30. Public order had collapsed in the apocalypse. Everyone looked out for themselves, and people rarely interacted. Shunhao kept to himself as well and avoided unnecessary conversation. Still, several key community figures stood out in his memory. First was Hu Hujing, the village chief. Even with so few residents left, the settlement still had an informal leader. Hu Hujing was a scholarly man in his 30s who wore glasses. According to his own account and what other survivors said, he had once been an associate professor specializing in chemical research. Before the apocalypse, he had lived largely out of public view, his own family barely aware of what he worked on. Hu Hujing had been one of the very first arrivals at Blackrock Mound. Rumors suggested he maintained some kind of connection to outside authorities. Armed supply convoys would occasionally deliver goods to him. For that reason, he became the only person in Blackrock Mound with access to outside news and imported supplies. More than one desperate soul had considered robbing him, but Hu Hujing owned a firearm and was a decent shot. Guns did little against fog-born monsters, yet they were lethally effective against other humans. No official appointment existed, but everyone tacitly accepted him as village chief. The second person was Song Dang, a gaunt middle-aged man. Reportedly a survival specialist long before the apocalypse. He had chosen to live a minimalist lifestyle to avoid sacrificing his dignity for money. Back then, he sustained himself on minimal spending while satisfying nutritional needs, teaching himself how to cultivate chlorella. Chlorella, also known as green algae, is a single-celled freshwater micro-alga measuring 3 to 8 micrometers across. With a 2 billion-year evolutionary history, Chlorella pyrenoidosa, the most common strain widely used in nutritional supplements, contains complete high-quality protein, dense chlorophyll, unique CGF growth factors, and a full spectrum of vitamins and minerals. Song Dang became the settlement's supplier of this nutritional supplement. Survivors bought chlorella regularly to prevent malnutrition when vegetables and meat were scarce. What made chlorella remarkable was that it only required small amounts of water, sunlight, and air to reproduce. That did not mean cultivation was easy. Shunhao had tried it himself. Within days, algae grown inside a water bucket had turned into foul, murky muck. Cultivating it properly demanded real skill. Third was Han Xueqing, a sharp-minded young female doctor in her 20s, always dressed in a tattered white lab coat. Stern and unsmiling, she insisted on payment up front and never extended credit. Still, her medical skill was genuine. so survivors respected her greatly. In these times, even a minor cold could turn fatal without medical help. As for Chun Hao himself, he had been a regular university graduate both before and after crossing into this world. Other than youth, good-looking features and solid general education that gave him reasonably sharp thinking. His only extra knowledge lay with electronics and computer networks, stemming from his university major. But the apocalypse brought total blackouts, cut-off running water, and dead internet. Those skills were next to useless in this reality. After brief consideration, Chun Hao picked up a large 2.5-liter bottle of drinking water he had enhanced the night before. He tore off its outer label, hefted the bottle, and unlocked the iron door. The reinforced door was heavy. He strained to pull it open. Sunlight streamed through broken windows onto a scene of total disarray. Furniture and debris used for barricades lay scattered everywhere, chewed and knocked aside by mist worms. Shining his flashlight onto the iron door, he saw several of its horizontal reinforcing steel bars had snapped, and dents marred its surface from repeated impacts. Strangely, a key sat neatly inserted inside the exterior keyhole. Cold dread washed over him. Thank goodness mistworms cannot use keys. So the door enhancement added a spare key? Clearly, I barely understand everything the system panel can do. He placed a hand on the door and focused his thoughts. Fortified iron door. Status, slightly damaged. Rising metal fatigue. Attached enhancement materials, none. Enhanceable, yes. Enhancement duration, 30 minutes. Only 30 minutes. Repairing light damage takes far less time. Without hesitation, he mentally tapped the small hammer icon on his panel. Enhancement began. Time remaining, 29 minutes, 59 seconds. Chun Hao closed and relocked the door, tucked the key safely inside his clothes. He checked his 2 fully recharged intermediate mist crystals and the small knife fastened at his waist. Carrying the bottle of water, he stepped over scattered wreckage and climbed to the 2nd floor. He peered out through the peephole, confirmed the surrounding area was safe. He shifted aside 2 wooden bars blocking the inner door and stepped outside. He closed the door, locked it from the outside using the ground floor key, and set off directly toward village chief Hu Hajing's house to trade supplies. Hu Hajing's home stood slightly left of the settlement center, a single-story bungalow surrounded by red brick walls. Its original white paint trimmed in red peeled heavily off the walls, making the house easy to spot. Chun Hao arrived outside the compound, took a deep breath, and called out loudly, "Village chief, are you home? It's Chun Hao. I want to trade goods." Moments later, footsteps sounded inside the yard gate. Hu Hajing stepped into view, the bespectacled, refined-looking man in his 30s. "Ah, Chun Hao, come inside. Did you get through last night's fog storm all right? I heard from a neighbor that one resident was found killed by fog monsters nearby. No one knows when this suffering will end." While Hu Hajing rambled, Chun Hao followed him into the courtyard. There sat the tall figure in the worn white lab coat, Dr. Han Xueqing. She was at the stone table examining an elderly gray-haired woman, Su Honghua, one of the few seniors who had stayed behind in the village when the apocalypse struck. Han Xueqing demanded payment before treating patients and never offered credit. Yet Su Honghua was one exception. On the night Han Xueqing first arrived at Blackrock Mound, dusk had already fallen. She would almost certainly have died at the hands of fog monsters after dark. No one wanted to open their door for a stranger. Extra human body heat made you more noticeable to monsters, and no one dared gamble with their lives. In the face of mortal danger, kindness was a luxury. Su Honghua, nearly 86 years old, had taken Han Xueqing in. As the old woman had said, "I have already lived a long life. It would be such a waste for a young girl to die. Come inside. More people in the house make it feel lively, and I fear nothing." From then onward, Han Xueqing treated Su Honghua free of charge, visited often, and brought her food. Back in the present, Chun Hao spoke. "Village chief, why are Dr. Han and Granny Su here?" "Granny Su has run out of her blood pressure medicine." Dr. Han accompanied her over to buy more and borrow the blood pressure monitor. Hu Hajing turned toward him. "So what do you want to trade for?" "I have an unopened 2.5-liter bottle of drinking water, still within its shelf life. Completely safe to drink." Chun Hao held out the bottle. "I would like 6 size, 5 batteries, and as many mist crystals as you can give me for whatever remains of the trade value." Hu Hajing adjusted his glasses, took the bottle, and twisted the cap slightly, nodding in satisfaction. While he still possessed some stored drinking water, clean supplies grew rarer every day. Tap water no longer flowed, water bottling plants lay dormant, and all natural water sources had been tainted by the black fog. River water could be used to wash clothes, yet skin exposure to heavily contaminated water might trigger itching. sores and festering wounds. Water filters grew less reliable as pollution worsened. Safe drinking water was always invaluable. This is very valuable. You must have searched far to find something like this. Are you certain you want to trade it? I can give you 6 size, 5 batteries plus 4 primary mist crystals. When villagers spoke of mist crystals without specification, they meant primary, grade 1s. In Chunhao's memory, he had never seen anyone else possess intermediate mist crystals. Survivors mined mist crystals during daylight hours at the mist crystal vein, the former Blackrock or mine several kilometers outside the village. Within this survivor settlement, food, clean drinking water, and mist crystals served as core hard currency resources. Any item granting even a small edge against fog monsters was precious indeed. Chunhao suspected that lack of proper mining tools and limited manpower explained why nobody unearthed intermediate-grade crystals locally. He had tried mining there before. To all appearances, mist crystals were indistinguishable from ordinary rock, for they were rock transformed by supernatural forces. So crystal, fog, or was genuinely extremely hard. The original body only had 2 pieces, which he had managed to dig up purely by luck, since they were fairly close to the surface. Mining was grueling manual labor reserved for people with no specialized skills. Village Chief Hu, Dr. Han, and Master Song, the so-called health supplement vendor, all traded their skills or resources for crystal, fog, Oregon naturally. They would never exhaust themselves doing hard physical work. Still, most survivors at Blackrock Hill had very little crystal, fog, or to barter with. Even if they owned some, they would not part with it unless cornered. That said, the village chief maintained connections with the outside world, so his stockpile of crystal, fog, or was surely the largest. The fact that he had casually promised Chunhao for pieces without batting an eye spoke volumes about how well off he was. Village chief, I definitely want to make this trade. Chunhao nodded. Very well, wait a moment. Without another word, village chief Hu turned and walked indoors carrying a bottle of mineral water. Soon he came back out holding a pack of 6 size AA batteries and a plastic bag containing 4 pieces of primary crystal, fog, Oregon. Count them for yourself. Chunhao took them, gave them a quick glance. Everything checks out. I'll be off then. After watching Chunhao walk away, Hu Hujing closed the courtyard gate. Leaving the village chief's house, Chunhao headed straight for Master Song, the man selling what everyone joked were health supplements. Song Dang was the only young-ish person who had stayed behind in this run down village after the mist apocalypse, a thoroughgoing layabout. Well, early 30s could count as young. His place lay at the back of the village, more than 1,000 meters behind the village chief's home. It took Chunhao over 10 minutes to arrive at a 2-story self-built house, much like the one where he lived. He curled his index and middle fingers inward, folding his thumb, ring finger, and pinky against his palm, then knocked. Knock, knock, knock. Brother Song, are you home? I've come to buy your health supplements. They are not health supplements. This is the supreme, apocalypse-proof, eco-friendly, pollution-free super plant chlorella, packed full of protein, vitamins, and minerals. An exasperated voice boomed from inside. The door swung open, revealing a gaunt, unkempt middle-aged man with messy hair. He looked fairly young for his age, yet exuded a permanent air of lethargy, as if nothing in the world could rouse his interest. You're going to ruin my reputation, Song Dang complained. Come on, I always think of you like an elder brother. Chunhao grinned. Besides, health supplements sounds fancy. Plenty of smart older folks love buying those. How much do you want? Song Dang brushed off Chunhao's teasing. He thought well of Chunhao from their earlier trades. Chunhao was always straightforward and quick-handed. Most other survivors haggled endlessly whenever they bought chlorella, draining his energy. Yet he had no choice but to bargain. Since he wanted to live an easy life, all his supplies had to come from trading with others. Brother Song, how much can I get for 2 AA batteries plus 1 piece of crystal, fog, or have you struck it rich? Why are you willing to spend such valuable goods all of a sudden? Both power sources and crystal, fog, or were precious, high-value commodities. You're splashing out today? How about a full bucket of chlorella? Roughly 1/3 chlorella paste and 2/3 liquid culture. Don't drink the liquid though. It might give you diarrhea. And don't try to cultivate it yourself. Bacteria will multiply easily and turn the whole thing into a foul mess, ruining the chlorella completely. Deal. I'll take your offer. Great. Wait right there. Song Dang went back inside. Chunhao stayed outside the door and waited quietly. Shortly afterward, Song Dang carried out a white plastic bucket fitted with a small air pump, tubing, and an 80 mesh filter wrapped around the outside. What do you think? The pump, tubing, and filter are free extras. I'll also throw in a fine plastic strainer. He pulled out a small strainer sealed inside a plastic bag. Use this to scoop up the chlorella paste. You know what to do. Song Dang gave Chun Hao a knowing look. Chun Hao understood immediately. Say, brother Song, you've kept growing chlorella all through the apocalypse. You must have quite a few water filters. Would you sell me one? I'll give you one primary crystal, fog, Oregon. It doesn't need to be brand new. Used, second, hand is fine. Chun Hao's enhancement panel could restore worn-out items and even improve them further. He cared nothing for cosmetic condition. After the apocalypse, buying new filters was nearly impossible. Apart from the village chief who could source goods from outside, Song Dang held pre-apocalypse stockpiles. Buying second-hand would make the trade cheaper and easier. He suspected Song Dang owned unopened brand, new ones, but would refuse to sell them. By lowering his expectations, he stood a far better chance of success. Chun Hao had no real need for a filter to purify river water for himself, yet he refused to stand out and draw unwanted attention. Not until he grew powerful enough. Sure enough, Song Dang laughed. No problem. Without running water or electricity, unsafe drinking water can get you killed. I have one that's been used for a while. It's a little worn, but perfectly functional. Chun Hao handed over one primary crystal, fog, and took the filter. He walked away quickly amid Song Dang's cheerful come again soon. He glanced upward. Sunlight filtered partially through thin mist, casting faint rays down to the ground. Has the daytime mist grown a little thicker since yesterday's mist surge? I hope it's just my imagination. He checked his cartoon tiger-themed wristwatch. 2:30 in the afternoon. Chun Hao hurried toward a river a few hundred meters outside the village. He took several discarded plastic bottles he had picked up alongside the road, filled them with river water, bundled them in a tattered plastic bag, and hurried back toward his lodging. He mentally tallied his gains along the way. 4 AA batteries, 2 primary crystal, fog, 1 bucket of chlorella, 1 water filter, and several plastic bottles filled with river water. Soon he arrived home. He scanned his surroundings carefully, pushed open the door, stepped inside, latched it shut, and braced it with a wooden stick as usual. After relieving himself, he climbed to the second floor. He blocked up the broken window planks damaged by mist insects the previous night with scraps of intact debris, then walked up to his reinforced iron door. He switched on his flashlight. The battle-scarred reinforced iron door had fully recovered to peak condition. Satisfied, he unlocked it, stepped inside, locked it again, and set down his bucket and bags. He sat heavily on his bed, resting his chin on folded hands, deep in thought. The bi-weekly mist surge has passed. Now we enter a relatively safe period. On calm nights outside surge events, only weak mist insects and mist beasts wander about in the mist. As long as I avoid loud noises and large heat sources, living alone rarely draws their attention, and my reinforced iron door provides solid protection. Phantoms are extremely rare occurrences. Besides, I have more crystal fog in reserve now. I should be safe for the time being. All right, let's get started. Chun Hao pulled out the tattered plastic bag, scooped a small portion of ash left behind by the slain phantom, and poured it inside the bag. He focused his will and attempted enhancement. Tattered plastic bag. Status: worn out. Additional enhancement material: phantom ash. Enhanceable: yes. Enhancement duration: 10 minutes. Yes. Joy flared inside him. He had uncovered another trick of his panel. By using simple, ordinary base items paired with unknown substances as additional enhancement materials, enhancement took very little time. After enhancement, the item description would reveal partial information about the unknown material. It functioned like a makeshift appraisal skill. Without hesitation, he activated enhancement. 10 minutes passed in a flash. The tattered plastic bag flickered once. What had once been a faded white supermarket shopping bag transformed into a black bag exuding faint, eerie cold. Chun Hao reached out and touched it. It felt somewhat like plastic, yet distinctly different. Information flooded his mind. Chilling plastic bag. Forged by fusing traces of a phantom's cold aura into ordinary plastic. It continuously radiates cold aura. Carrying it may make mist monsters mistake you for a phantom. Chun Hao was stunned. Phantom ash was far more valuable than he had guessed. He slipped his hand inside the bag. Cold closed all around his palm, much like the inside of a refrigerator crisper. Pleased, he already thought of several practical applications. Next, he set about enhancing the 7 river water-filled plastic bottles all at once. Enhancement duration: 70 minutes. 70 minutes later, the bottles full of river water had turned into unbranded bottled water containers. Chun Hao set aside one portion of leftover compressed biscuits and ham sausage for his evening meal. He placed the remaining food together with the chlorella bucket and focused his will again. Artificially cultivated chlorella. Status: slightly contaminated liquid culture. Additional enhancement materials: compressed biscuits, ham sausage. Enhanceable: yes. Enhancement duration: 60 minutes. He confirmed enhancement, then closed his eyes to rest while waiting. Though tonight posed comparatively little danger, he never let down his guard. He planned to stay awake all night. 60 minutes slipped by. The plastic bucket, chlorella, biscuits, and ham sausage flickered simultaneously. In the next instant, a brand new white plastic bucket roughly 30 centimeters across and 40 centimeters tall sat before him. Shenhao stepped forward and lifted the lid. Inside lay rows of long bar-shaped food individually wrapped in white plastic packaging. One wrapper bore printed text resembling nutritional information, written in a script unknown to Earth. Beneath the top layer was a second layer. Each bar measured roughly 4 centimeters thick and over 10 centimeters long. 50 bars filled each layer, giving a total of 100 bars. Information flowed into his mind. High nutrition survival protein bars. A single bar supplies all daily energy and nutrition required by one adult. Concentrated high-quality whey protein delivers strong, lasting satiety. Carefully selected ingredients: moderate sugar and low oil, no added refined sugar. Dense, satisfying texture containing grain fiber, comprehensive vitamins, and complete high-quality protein to satisfy all daily human nutritional demands. Well, Shenhao swore softly in surprise. He tore open one wrapper and took a bite. The texture was firm and dense, nothing like crumbly cheap biscuits. Rich, creamy milk flavor mixed with subtle savory whey notes, sweetness restrained without cloying. Crunchy crushed nuts added texture, while a soft filling sat at the core. After swallowing, a faint cheesy aftertaste lingered without the unpleasant fishy tang common to protein powder. He finished the whole bar quickly, then picked up one newly enhanced water bottle and drank half of it in large gulps. A solid sense of fullness washed over him. Satisfied with the protein bars produced by his enhancement panel, he lay back lazily on his bed. No stray light penetrated the cramped, sealed room. Only his flashlight beam pierced absolute darkness. Dust particles drifted clearly within the shaft of light. As the beam wavered, its spot shifted across the room, tearing a narrow crack through shadow. He could almost reach out and touch the dividing line between light and stillness. Shenhao narrowed his eyes, savoring this rare moment of peace. Peace did not last long. Night fell, mist rolled out, and mist monsters began their nocturnal rampage. Deep, heavy footsteps of gigantic mist monsters rumbled outside his house. Swarms of mist insects produced dense rustling, scratching sounds. Shenhao reminded himself sharply. Don't let small winds go to your head. Shenhao. The mist kept spreading and thickening day by day. He could not predict what dangers the next mist surge would bring. His current strength was nowhere near enough. Threats came not merely from mist monsters, but also the unpredictable hearts of other apocalypse survivors. If anyone learned about his special ability, the consequences would be catastrophic. I still lack power. I have enough food now, yet I have no reliable way to defend myself. Without my reinforced iron door, ordinary mist monsters could kill me. Even a surprise knife or gunshot from another human would leave me helpless. Weird, distant howls echoed through the night outside. Shenhao's mind raced. His enhancement panel was incredibly powerful, his greatest lifeline in this mist-stricken apocalypse. But he had to use it wisely. Wasting enhancement time on trivial objects would severely hurt his long-term survival chances. My next enhanced item ought to defend me both against mist monsters and hostile humans. Human weapons relied mostly on steel and gunpowder. Provided he kept his secret hidden, heavily armed groups would rarely target him, and civilian firearms were extremely scarce. Most mist monsters relied on physical attacks. Body armor similar to SWAT tactical vests would serve perfectly. With repeated enhancements, perhaps someday he could forge armor comparable to Iron Man, Spartan Mjolnir armor, or Space Marine power armor. The village chief maintained contacts with former military groups. Next time he would ask whether he could acquire such gear. He felt quietly pleased with his own reasoning. So his priority was set: obtain protective armor. Weapons were not his immediate priority. Firearms were all but unobtainable for him, and they dealt limited damage against mist monsters. He already owned several kitchen knives he could enhance at will. Still, fighting mist monsters in melee combat amounted to suicide. Against human opponents, he lacked real combat experience and feared sustaining injury. All those ideas improved his power through external gear. Far more important was strengthening his own body. True strength came from within. Shenhao had basic fitness knowledge. One shortcut to rapid physical improvement involved performance-enhancing substances. Training mattered, nutrition mattered, yet specialized supplements could boost physical capabilities extremely quickly. He knew such substances carried well-known risks, but his enhancement panel might eliminate or even completely remove those side effects. That represented one shortcut. Steady conventional physical training yielded slow progress. Once he passed initial gains from bodyweight exercise, plateaus set in, and gaining even 10 extra kilograms of strength could take years. He then thought of inner energy cultivation from wuxia novels, immortal cultivation techniques from xinxia fiction, and traditional Chinese martial art boxing principles. If his panel could enhance pieces of paper scribbled with theoretical notes into genuine functional cultivation arts, his survival odds in this apocalypse would soar. He got straight to work. He recalled everything he knew about martial arts systems, grabbed pen and paper, and wrote by flashlight. First, he wrote down China's 7th set primary middle school broadcast calisthenics, the basic foundational physical training routine from his school years. It contained 10 movements: stretching exercise, limb exercise, chest expansion exercise, leg kick exercise, lateral bend exercise, trunk twist exercise, abdomen back exercise, whole body exercise, jumping exercise, relaxation exercise. He wrote down as many movement details as he could remember. He placed his palm over the sheet and focused his will, trying to enhance the written set of broadcast calisthenics. Panel information materialized. 7th set primary middle school broadcast calisthenics. Status: incomplete. Additional enhancement material: none. Enhanceable: yes. Enhancement duration: 60 minutes. Relief washed over him. His All Things enhancement panel truly lived up to its name, despite the slightly silly mini v.1.0.0 suffix on its interface. He held off on activating enhancement for now. He took out a second sheet of paper and jotted down traditional Chinese martial art theories. Internal-external unity, 3 body segments and 4 extremities, the 6 harmonies, yin-yang and emptiness substantiality, power driven by the waist, and many more theoretical concepts. He recorded principles of force generation, body movement, and mental focus. In short, the 6 harmonies unified, power originating from the root joints flowing outward, waist driving all movement. Build physical coordination externally, nurture internal blood-qi circulation, balance hardness and softness, alternate tension and relaxation, unify the whole body into one coherent force, avoid reckless brute strength. He wrote only theory. He left concrete practice steps entirely to the panel. Finished with martial art notes, he took a third sheet and wrote theories about wuxia inner energy arts. The dantian as the sea of inner force where internal power was stored, energy circulating through cosmic orbits. The minor cosmic orbit circulated energy along the Ren and Du meridians, strengthening vitality. The major cosmic orbit sent energy flowing through all 12 regular meridians and 8 extraordinary meridians, letting inner power move freely throughout every part of the body. He pulled out a fourth sheet and wrote theories for immortal cultivation techniques. Free spiritual energy permeated all heaven and earth, the foundation of all living things. Breath control meditation drew spiritual energy into the body. Human spiritual channels acted as pathways for energy flow. Lower dantian functioned as a spiritual sea storing cultivated energy. He wrote down every concept he could think of. He shook his aching hand and blinked his tired eyes. Sitting upright, he laid out all 4 sheets of paper. Broadcast calisthenics notes, traditional martial art theory, inner energy theory, and immortal cultivation theory. He placed his palm over all of them, concentrated his will, targeting the 7th set broadcast calisthenics as his primary enhancement object. Panel data flickered. This time information loaded far more slowly than it did for physical items. He waited 4 full minutes before text finally appeared. 7th set primary middle school broadcast calisthenics. Status: incomplete. Additional enhancement materials, traditional martial art theory, wuxia inner energy theory, immortal cultivation theory. Enhanceable: yes. Enhancement duration: 5,000 years. Holy crap! Chen Hao gasped in shock. His eyes went wide, mouth hanging open as though he could swallow an ostrich egg. Is this a joke? 5,000 years. That's nearly the full length of recorded Chinese civilization. Looks like I overestimated you, panel. You are not as almighty as I thought. He grumbled mentally. He removed the highest value additional material, the immortal cultivation theory notes, and tried enhancing the 7th set broadcast calisthenics once more. 7th set national primary secondary students radio calisthenics status. Incomplete bonus enhancement materials. Chinese martial arts practice theory, Internal Qigong cultivation theory, enhanceable. Yes, enhancement duration, 3 years. The enhancement duration had shrunk drastically from the exaggerated length of Chinese civilization down to just 3 years. This spoke volumes about the weight of immortal cultivation. Chen Hao ached to know what it felt like to cultivate immortality. Countless times in his dreams, he had imagined himself soaring through the sky, traversing the earth, plucking stars, and seizing the moon, living as long as heaven and earth. But those were only fantasies, dreams. When dawn broke, everything vanished. Yet the system panel told him it could be real. Admittedly, it would take 5,000 years. But as long as he stayed alive, anything was possible. Up until then, Chen Hao had merely existed, living for survival alone. Now he suddenly possessed a reason to keep going. He could not die. Absolutely not. He had to stay alive, forever. He wanted to cultivate immortality, stand atop the immortal realm, overlooking all the world. Where Chen Hao walked, heaven followed. If Chen Haoyan had never been born, the end times would be shrouded in endless night. All right, he had gotten carried away. He took a deep breath and calmed his mind. Chen Hao stared at the 3-year enhancement time on the panel and fell silent. So his dream of becoming a martial arts master was also out of reach. A flicker of hope had arisen quietly, only to fade just as swiftly. If Chen Hao knew the sorrow-stricken palm, he could unleash it endlessly in this moment. Silence hung heavy in the room. Mentally, he removed the internal Qigong cultivation theory from the bonus enhancement materials. Resigned, he refocused his mind. 7th set National Primary Secondary Students Radio Calisthenics Status. Incomplete bonus enhancement materials. Chinese martial arts practice theory, enhanceable. Yes, enhancement duration, 7 days. He did not immediately confirm the enhancement. Chen Hao pondered. 7 days is completely acceptable. Before that, I should prioritize enhancing my drinking water supply. Food supplies can last roughly 100 days, so I have no immediate worries there. Batteries, 2 inside the flashlight, plus 4 I obtained through trade. If I conserve power, low brightness mode should last 7 nights. He took the 2 partially used AA batteries out of the flashlight and inserted brand new ones. He focused his thoughts on the old batteries in his hands. AA-sized battery status. More than half the power consumed bonus enhancement materials. None enhanceable. Yes, enhancement duration, 60 minutes. Restoring 2 half-discharged AA batteries to full capacity takes 60 minutes. That means 30 minutes for 1 half-used battery, and a full hour to fully charge 1 empty battery from zero. Enhancement time varies wildly for different objects. Chen Hao could not yet work out what governed enhancement durations. It did not seem tied purely to mass or total energy. Rarity might play a part. He pushed the puzzle to the back of his mind. One of his strengths was that he did not dwell endlessly on unsolved questions, avoiding pointless mental burnout. He confirmed the enhancement, switched off the flashlight, and lay down on the bed to rest. Rural self-built houses offered poor sound insulation. Strange noises emanated from the black fog monsters outside, making it hard to settle down. Still, human adaptability proved formidable. After several days, Chen Hao had grown somewhat desensitized to the outside racket, learning to lie quietly and conserve his strength. 60 minutes slipped by while he rested. Chen Hao looked at the newly refurbished batteries, wrapped in factory-fresh plastic packaging, and began planning what else he could enhance for the rest of the night. He switched the flashlight back on and pulled out a fruit knife, focusing his attention. Fruit knife status. Chipped blade, dull edge bonus enhancement materials. None enhanceable. Yes, enhancement duration, 60 minutes. He declined to enhance this single knife. He retrieved 2 more fruit knives and gathered planks and steel scraps, refocusing his mind. Fruit knives times 3 status. Chipped, dull, rusted, rolled blades bonus enhancement materials. Wood planks, steel scraps enhanceable. Yes, enhancement duration, 4 hours and 30 minutes. His mental finger tapped the little hammer icon on the virtual panel. Enhancement commenced. He paid no special attention to the passing time. Dawn would arrive in a few hours, and he had tasks waiting for him in daylight. He decided to get some sleep and restore his energy. He stretched and climbed out of bed. Glancing at his cartoon tiger-themed wristwatch, it was 9:30 in the morning. From inside a white plastic bucket, he pulled out a high-nutrient survival-style protein bar and crunched through it quickly. Its dense texture and milky aroma refreshed him. After drinking some water, his body felt fully recovered. Only then did he remember the 3 fruit knives he had set to enhance overnight. Turning on his flashlight, he walked over to the corner at the foot of his bed where he had left them. At first glance, the 3 short blades seized all his attention. The worn-out knives had been completely remade, looking brand new straight out of a factory. They shared identical designs, and each came with a hard scabbard, as if they were standardized products manufactured in the same plant. He picked one up. It felt solid and weighty. Lacking the lightweight feel of civilian cutlery, it carried the heavy, rugged quality of military-grade hardware. Information flooded directly into Chun Hao's mind. Standard military-issue tactical straight dagger. An industrial masterpiece from military manufacturers. He drew the blade from its sheath and examined it. Overall, it was nearly 10 centimeters longer than an ordinary civilian fruit knife, measuring less than 25 centimeters in total length. Its compact size made it perfect for individual carry, balancing cutting performance and stabbing capability. The matte alloy steel blade featured crisp lines, a tough, sharp cutting edge, serrated teeth along the spine for emergency utility work, and a spear-shaped tip delivering powerful penetration. Its black non-slip nylon grip fit naturally in the palm. A window-breaking tip capped the pommel, and an integrated steel handguard kept hands clear of the sharp edge. What a fantastic blade! Chun Hao stroked the blade's surface, full of admiration. Few men could resist the allure of fine steel. A fine blade belonged in the hands of a hero. He was unsure whether he qualified as a hero, yet he knew this dagger would count as a peerless treasure in ancient times. Products from the panel could always be trusted. He still wondered exactly how the system produced such items. The final product bore almost no resemblance to the original battered fruit knives. He stopped overthinking. He strapped one tactical dagger to his waistband against his body and stowed the other two underneath his pillow. After taking care of personal hygiene, he prepared to head outside for his daily tasks. He unlocked his reinforced metal door, descended to the ground floor, double-checked that everything was safe, and stepped outside. Glancing up at the gloomy sky, he closed the door and set off straight for a small supermarket in Haishigang that had stood before the apocalypse. Months had passed since the end times struck. The supermarket would likely hold nothing but debris and collapsed shelves. But Chun Hao was not searching for intact supplies. Thanks to his enhancement panel, trash could be transformed into valuable gear. Soon he reached the supermarket entrance. The original red and white store sign bore a large hole smashed into it. Only fragments of its name remained legible. He scanned the surroundings, shone his flashlight with his left hand, drew his dagger with his right hand, and stepped cautiously inside. He had worried he might encounter danger inside, other survivors, or black fog monsters active in daylight. His fears proved unfounded. Aside from himself, neither survivors nor monsters showed any interest in piles of scrap garbage. Still, he moved quietly, searching carefully. He reached the household electronics section and ignored rice cookers, fans, desk lamps, and similar devices. Without electricity, they were useless ornaments. A blue-colored package caught his eye, marked Blue Sky Radio. Aside from a thin coating of dust, the packaging remained intact. He brushed off the dust and noted that it ran on AA batteries. He placed the radio inside a shopping bag. Unlike other small appliances, radios operated using ordinary batteries. Ever since the apocalypse struck, internet and most electronics had ceased to function. Chun Hao knew almost nothing about the outside world. Many questions troubled him. Did humanity possess any effective countermeasures against the black fog? Where did the black fog originate? Was there some safe haven sheltering people from the fog monsters? Had scientists developed better ways to harness fog crystals? Could fog crystals even be artificially synthesized? Surviving alone carried a certain gritty romance, yet life would be far better with like-minded companions. To respond properly to future threats, he needed reliable intelligence about the world beyond his immediate surroundings. Radios, trivial during peacetime, were among the few working communication devices in the end times. Maybe I can use this radio to contact other survivors, or even official groups, Chun Hao thought. One obvious limitation struck him. Standard radios only received signals. Two-way communication required walkie-talkies or dedicated radio stations. To make his radio capable of transmission, he would have to rely on panel enhancement. He searched the rest of the store and found nothing else promising. He moved to the food section, which lay in complete ruin. No edible goods remained. Fortunately, he already had sufficient food reserves. He walked quickly to the beverage aisle, equally devastated, yet spotted many empty plastic bottles discarded by others. Unfazed by dust and grime, he collected roughly 27 bottles and stuffed them inside his shopping bag. If filled with river water and enhanced by the panel into safe drinking mineral water, they ought to sustain him for 7 days, carrying him through until he finished enhancing the 7th set radio calisthenics. He kept searching, gathering potentially useful supplies, rubber gloves, cleaning rags, steel wool, and other miscellaneous goods. Then he carefully exited the supermarket and headed for the river. Once beside the river, he pulled on the rubber gloves he had found and filled every plastic bottle with river water. Soon all 27 bottles were full. He loaded them into his shopping bag. The weight was substantial. Without delay, he returned to his dwelling. He shut himself inside the second-floor storage room and double-checked the door. Setting the radio and miscellaneous supplies aside, he placed his hands over the collection of water-filled plastic bottles and focused his mind. Contaminated bottled water times 27 status. Moderately polluted bonus enhancement materials. None enhanceable. Yes enhancement duration. 270 minutes. He did not hesitate. His mental finger tapped the small hammer icon on the panel. Enhancement began. Everything was ready. Chun-Hao burned with anticipation to start enhancing the 7th set National Primary-Secondary Students Radio Calisthenics. He watched the enhancement countdown ticking down on the panel instead of sitting idle. While daylight lasted, other tasks demanded his attention. He stepped outside, tidied everything up, secured his door, and walked toward Village Chief Hu Hejing's home. He reached the house quickly and knocked. No sound came from the courtyard. Clearing his throat, he called out, "Village Chief. It's Chun-Hao. I've come to do another deal with you." At last, sounds of movement echoed from within. Hu Hejing pulled the gate partly open, studied Chun-Hao cautiously, pulled him inside, and latched the gate shut behind them. He looked preoccupied. "What do you want to trade? Speak. If you have high-quality goods like last time." "Village Chief, I do have valuable items, but I haven't brought them today. I mainly came to ask you something." "You look troubled. Has something happened?" Chun-Hao knew the village chief was a highly educated man. Normally amiable on the surface, deep down he carried quiet pride, possibly without realizing it. Education, influence, and connections had allowed him to survive comparatively comfortably after the apocalypse. Whatever weighed on Hu Hejing must be serious. "I may as well tell you. Everyone will hear about it soon enough," Hu Hejing sighed. After Longshan City fell to black fog monsters, human resistance did not collapse entirely. Remaining military personnel, local elites, and intellectuals gathered survivors inside a nearby air raid bunker to establish the Longshan survivor base. The armed patrol teams you saw earlier came from there. Conditions were stable for a while. The base population stayed moderate, so it drew relatively few fog monsters each night. Relying on leftover military weapons and fog crystals, they managed to hold their ground. But yesterday, I received terrible news. During the last major Black Fog riot, an extraordinarily powerful fog monster singled out the Longshan survivor base. In a single night, that one monster inflicted catastrophic casualties. Barely 1/10 of the population survived. The survivors are abandoning the base. A large refugee group intends to travel to the provincial survivor base in Jizhou City. They will pass through Haishigang and camp here overnight. They should arrive tomorrow. The problem is that nobody knows whether that monster is pursuing them. What if it follows and strikes after dark? Haishigang has absolutely no way to fight such a creature. Chun-Hao's expression darkened. Disaster was landing on his doorstep completely out of the blue. All he wanted was to quietly survive the Black Fog apocalypse relying on his panel. Why could he not enjoy even that modest wish? Why was fate forcing danger upon him? If only I possessed greater power, a sharp glint flashed across Chun-Hao's eyes, yet he suppressed the thought. His hunger for strength burned hotter than ever. Regaining his composure, he looked toward Hu Hejing. There is no point dwelling on the worst-case scenario. The monster might not follow them here. We have to focus on the present. I actually came with a question. Do you know how I can acquire a complete set of Special Forces grade body armor? Helmets, ballistic torso plates, limb joint protection, sensory gear shielding, full environmental protective gear, the whole kit. Hu Hejing stared in surprise. In his impression, Chun-Hao was just an ordinary young man struggling to stay alive, quiet and law-abiding even before the catastrophe, never prone to fights. He wondered what Chun-Hao planned to do. That equipment counts as restricted material. Even in the current world, it is extremely valuable. It offers little defense against black fog monsters, but it can stop small-caliber gunfire and bladed attacks. Are you planning to fight somebody? You have no enemies here in Haishigang. Chun-Hao felt relief. The village chief truly had connections. He needed to explain honestly to avoid misunderstandings that might ruin their trade. Of course not. I have no enemies. You know me. I am an honest, law-abiding person. During the last fog riot, fog creatures attacked my home. I heard them slamming against my door, nearly breaking through. I barely held them off with fog crystals until sunrise. I almost shared the grim fate of several of my neighbors. Genuine dread lingered in his voice. While the fog creatures never breached his door, he had come terrifyingly close to one of the horrifying phantoms. Ever since then I have lived in constant fear, terrified that monsters will break in while I sleep. Wearing proper protective gear would let me rest much easier. Hu Hejing appeared convinced after hearing his explanation. I will take your word for it. The refugee party fleeing Longshan tomorrow possesses sets of that exact military body armor. I must warn you again, though. It cannot protect you against black fog monsters, and you will need valuable goods to barter for it. Leave that to me. At least I want to try, and I will not ask you for your help for nothing. Tomorrow, I will give you 2 sealed 500-milliliter bottles of mineral water as compensation. Hu Hujing's mood brightened. Simply passing along information earned him 2 bottles of precious water. This was a perfect deal. Very well. Come to my place tomorrow at noon. Understood. I won't trouble you any longer. Chen Hao took his leave. Back home, he reviewed his conversation, checking for logical gaps or suspicious statements. Then he analyzed every risk brought by the incoming Longshan refugee convoy. Above all loomed the threat of the monstrous being that had destroyed the Longshan survivor base. That was his highest priority. Truthfully, he could not claim to feel no fear knowing a monster powerful enough to overwhelm a well-defended medium-sized survivor base might descend on Haishigang. After all, this was an existence he stood absolutely no chance of opposing at his current stage. Should he pin all his hopes on the chance that the foe would not come, or that it would fail to spot him even if it did arrive? That was nothing but ostrich, like self-deception. Chen Hao would never resort to such measures unless he had no other choice left. If I cannot fight it, is there a way for me to hide? Or some means to make the black fog monsters overlook me? To put it plainly, I only need to draw less attention than everyone else at Blackrock Outpost. His mind raced, and a thought suddenly struck him. He pulled out ashes left behind by the wraith he had killed earlier from a corner. He had kept them sealed inside a bag all this time. The only time he had used any was during an experiment, when he had enhanced an ordinary plastic bag into a cold, emanating one. Roughly 3/4 of the ashes still remained. He remembered clearly. The description for that cold, emanating plastic bag, enhanced with wraith ashes, stated its frigid aura might trick black fog monsters into misidentifying its bearer as a wraith. Just 1/4 of the wraith ashes produced that effect. What if I use all the rest? Could that drastically raise the odds of black fog monsters seeing me as one of their own? Might it even fool that horrifying black fog monster that could show up? Hope welled up inside Chen Hao. He longed to start the enhancement with the wraith ashes right away. Unfortunately, his panel was still busy enhancing those 27 bottles of river water. Ugh, I wish the panel could evolve. What if I got an extra enhancement slot? It already has a version number. Who knows, maybe it can update. In the post-apocalyptic world, power grids and internet were gone, leaving almost no form of entertainment. To fight off crushing boredom, Chen Hao had gradually grown used to talking to himself. Time slipped by. Chen Hao lay on the bed, eyes blank, looking like a fish washed ashore, as if his soul had departed. Only he himself knew he was watching the enhancement countdown floating in his field of vision. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Chen Hao lurched upright in a vigorous arch off the bed. On the floor, those 27 bottles of river water had transformed into brand new factory, sealed mineral water of uniform packaging. Chen Hao was no longer surprised by such sights. Without hesitation, he took out the remaining wraith ashes and a worn full-body raincoat. He stacked the 2 items together and focused his will. Full body raincoat status, slightly damaged, worn out enhancement materials attached, wraith ashes enhancement available, yes enhancement duration, 2 hours. He confirmed without delay and initiated the enhancement. Watching the timer tick down, Chen Hao checked his cartoon tiger-themed wristwatch. It was already 5:47 p.m. Dusk would arrive soon. He opened the door to take care of his bodily needs quickly, then returned behind the reinforced iron door of the storage room, quietly waiting for the black fog monsters to descend. Before long, eerie howls and footsteps of varying loudness echoed from outside. Ignoring the chaos all around him, Chen Hao stayed inside his tiny shelter, cut off from the world. I shouldn't waste the night hours. Since I am about to enhance physical training techniques, I can start basic bodyweight workouts in advance. He had avoided physical exercise before purely because food had been scarce. Without enough calories, exercising would only leave him sick and broken. The saying training accounts for 3 parts, nutrition 7, was no empty slogan. He dredged up memories of fitness knowledge from his past life. He had only ever been an amateur. He had trained with bodyweight exercises at first, then joined a gym once he hit a plateau. All his form pointers came from online fitness creators. Pushing himself too hard straight away would be reckless. Everything needed to progress step by step. Chen Hao settled on 4 foundational bodyweight exercises: push-ups, inverted rows, squats, and planks. First came a proper warm-up to avoid strains and sprains before he even got started. He performed sets of high knees, jumping jacks, shoulder rolls, and hip rotations. He stopped once he broke into a light sweat and moved on to formal training. He got down on the ground for push-ups, hands placed slightly wider than shoulder width, maintaining a straight body line with his core braced. He felt tension across his abdomen as he slowly lowered his chest toward the floor before pushing back up, keeping his lower back neutral and hips level. His form was flawless. He completed 10 repetitions. He felt decent. As a young man, he still had decent stamina. His plan was 3 sets of 10 reps, with 1-minute rest between each set. This was an extremely beginner-friendly routine. Back before the apocalypse, he could knock out 100 push-ups non-stop. He could have done more, but excessive lactic acid buildup would hinder future training progress, so he held back. Next were inverted rows. He gripped the edge of his bed frame, slid his feet underneath, planted his heels firmly on the floor, kept his torso straight, and pulled his chest toward the bed. He felt his shoulder blades squeeze together and his abdominal muscles engage. He performed 10 clean repetitions per set, 3 sets total, again resting 1 minute between rounds. Then squats, feet shoulder width apart, toes angled slightly outward, hips pushed back, knees tracking over the toes, thighs lowered parallel to the ground, spine held upright. Sets, repetitions, and rest intervals matched those for the prior exercises. Last of all, planks, a straightforward core exercise. Elbows planted on the floor, body held in a straight line, abdomen braced, no sagging hips or raised buttocks. He aimed for 30 seconds per set, 3 sets total. This full body routine worked his chest, shoulders, triceps, back, biceps, glutes, legs, and core. Naturally, it was only suitable for beginners. Once the novice strength gains faded, pure bodyweight training offered little further progress without added load. Chen Hao planned to train 3 times a week on alternate days to give his body ample time to adapt and recover. Each session ran roughly 30 minutes long. Thanks to low volume and sensible rest breaks, he felt reasonably well after finishing. Sweaty and with mildly fatigued muscles, he remained comfortably within his limits. Provided he slept well, he expected no crippling soreness the following day. He tore open a protein bar and ate it, then drank mineral water to replenish fluids. Chen Hao began going over trade details for his meeting the next day with refugees from Dragon Mountain Base. 2 critical matters awaited him tomorrow. First, the looming threat of black fog monsters, for which he had prepared countermeasures. Second, trading for a complete set of special forces tactical armor. He had already settled on payment, intermediate mist crystals. Though far more potent than primary mist crystals, they should not be overly rare. Mist crystal veins held substantial deposits, possibly even advanced mist crystals. Only the collapse of human populations and industrial capacity after the apocalypse made mining difficult. Nevertheless, huge risks remained. Greed drove people. If word got out that he possessed intermediate mist crystals, would the leadership or armed fighters from Dragon Mountain Base simply rob him? Months into the apocalypse, laws and public order had become meaningless. Killing and looting held no moral weight for many survivors, and nobody would stand up for Chen Hao. Straight-up robbery eliminated the need for fair trade entirely. Against armed opponents carrying firearms and tactical vests, outnumbered by at least a dozen men, Chen Hao had no way to resist. To trust in strangers' innate goodness was to press one's own neck against a blade. Chen Hao would never make such a foolish gamble. Against armed groups, there were only 2 core principles to deter theft: make robbery cost more than whatever they could gain through trade, and deny them the ability to overwhelm or trap him completely in one strike. After careful thought, Chen Hao concluded mutual benefit cooperation was his most realistic option. His combat power could not be improved fast enough to stand against firearms. Bullets might be ineffective against black fog monsters, yet they killed humans with terrifying reliability. Chen Hao felt worn out. He constantly needed to watch for black fog monsters and guard against other survivors. Why could this world not be better? Then again, perhaps it had never been good to begin with. He worked out a plan for mutually beneficial dealings. Option 1 was to extend cooperation over a long span. Offer repeated trades of intermediate mist crystals. It would arouse some suspicion, yet grant steady access to valuable supplies. Option 2. Avoid showing up personally and bring in a neutral third-party guarantor. He could pay a cut of his profits to have village chief who conduct transactions on his behalf. Still, that depended heavily on the chief's integrity. Chen Hao decided to combine both approaches. He could not be certain of village chief whose moral character, yet he knew the chief would never turn down survival supplies. In exchange for regular discounted shipments of clean water, The village chief would handle future trades. All three parties would reap benefits, securing short-term stability. For risks further down the line, Chunhao only needed time to grow stronger. Once he advanced enough, ordinary humans would pose no threat to him. Crack, clang. The sharp sound of splintering wood and flying nails cut through the quiet. Chunhao snapped back to full alert. He slipped one intermediate mist crystal into each hand, gripping them tight. Seconds later, rustling noises and dense footsteps drew rapidly closer, heading straight for his storage room. Boom, 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 boom. A barrage of heavy impacts hammered against the door. Chunhao held his breath, eyes locked on the reinforced iron barrier. Thankfully, the black fog monsters that could enter through the second-floor window were mostly small mist bugs. Though they threw themselves tirelessly against the door, the heavy iron barrier held firm, blocking them completely. He exhaled in relief and tried to figure out what had drawn the mist bugs straight to him. Comparing tonight's actions with those of the night before, one difference stood out: his workout. Black fog monsters were drawn to heat. Strenuous exercise had raised his body temperature, giving off a heat signature the bugs had picked up. Just my body heat from exercise draws nearby mist bugs. How do large-scale human bases cope with this? Or is there no way to cope at all? Do they simply rely on strong defenses and weapons to fend monsters off? Black fog monsters came in endless waves. Human supplies dwindled with every fight. Direct confrontation was unwise. Hiding and evasion remained the better strategy. I wonder what scientists have managed to develop. Maybe I could enhance one of their inventions and turn the tide. As Chunhao stayed motionless, his body and room temperature dropped. The mist bugs lost interest in pounding an impenetrable door and slowly retreated. Chunhao breathed easy once more. This cannot go on. I will keep exercising regularly. I cannot simply stop training out of fear. I need a proper solution. Meanwhile, the enhancement countdown for his raincoat reached 0. The tattered raincoat resting on his bed flickered and blurred. A brand new black full-body raincoat materialized before him. Chunhao held it up against himself. It fit his build perfectly. Information flooded into his mind. Wraith raincoat. Forged by enhancement using ashes left by deceased wraiths. When worn, it continuously radiates a frigid aura. To a certain degree, it lets the wearer mimic a wraith, tricking low-rank black fog monsters into misidentifying you as one of their kind. Chunhao was thoroughly satisfied with what he held. Exactly as I hoped. It lets me mimic wraiths and fool low-rank black fog monsters, at least partially. He slipped on the wraith raincoat and fastened every button. A cool chill washed over his skin, like standing in front of an air conditioner set to 25 degrees Celsius. Once he pulled the hood over his head, the cold wrapped all around him. Without extra layers, prolonged or would grow uncomfortably cold. Wait, could this frigid aura also lower how noticeable I am to black fog monsters? Confidence for what lay ahead the next day grew stronger inside him. He admired the wraith raincoat, pleased with its properties, and decided to keep it on. Free air conditioning with no power source was hard to pass up. He took 2 primary mist crystals obtained from village chief, who focused his will. The panel materialized in sight. Primary mist crystal ×2 status. Intact enhancement materials attached. None enhancement available. Yes enhancement duration. 60 minutes ×2. He started enhancement immediately. Since he intended to trade intermediate mist crystals for special forces armor and maintain ongoing business, producing more intermediate mist crystals made perfect sense. Unfortunately, events had moved too fast. He had not had time to acquire extra primary mist crystals beforehand. Plans never survive reality. I only want to survive peacefully. Why does everything keep pushing me into danger? Deep down, Chunhao held no grand ambitions. After unlocking his enhancement panel, all he wanted at first was quiet survival in this ruined world. When he learned the panel could forge cultivation arts, he only hoped to grow strong enough to protect himself. That was all. After a brief moment of reflection, he had nothing else to do, so he closed his eyes to rest. 2 hours passed, and enhancement finished. He tucked the newly transformed intermediate mist crystals, previously kumquat-sized primary mist crystals, now as big as eggs, under his pillow for safekeeping. He walked over and laid his palm flat against the door. Reinforced iron door status, slightly damaged, rising metal fatigue enhancement materials attached, none enhancement available, yes enhancement duration, 20 minutes. The mist bug assault had not lasted long, so repair enhancement required little time. He activated it right away. 20 minutes later, the reinforced iron door returned to perfect condition. Chunhao retrieved 2 sheets of paper, one printed with the full set of the 7th National Primary and secondary school radio calisthenics. The other filled with notes on traditional Chinese martial arts theory. He hesitated. This would be his longest enhancement yet. Many other items still needed improving. He worried emergencies might arise mid-enhancement. Enhancement processes could not be interrupted. I have done everything I possibly can. Disasters remain low, probability risks. I am sick of feeling powerless. When an opportunity appears, I must seize it. He finally made up his mind, placed his hands over the stacked sheets, and concentrated. The panel popped up. The 7th set of National Radio Calisthenics for Primary and Secondary School Status. Incomplete enhancement materials attached. Traditional Chinese martial arts theoretical notes. Enhancement available. Yes, enhancement duration, 7 days. He mentally tapped the little hammer icon on the panel. Enhancement commenced. Enhancement countdown. 6 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes. He watched the timer tick, filled with eager anticipation mixed with anxiety. Composing himself, he lay down still wearing the wraith raincoat and closed his eyes to rest. Chunhao stretched and sat up in bed. He had fallen asleep in the middle of the night once exhaustion overwhelmed him. Fortunately, the wraith raincoat performed admirably and nothing dangerous occurred. He checked his cartoon tiger wristwatch. Night had passed. It was just past 8 in the morning. Plenty of time remained before his arranged meeting. His body felt fine, thanks to adequate sleep and his sensible training plan. Still, he stuck to his original schedule and skipped training for today, resuming on an alternate day. He ate a protein bar and drank mineral water for breakfast, tidied his appearance, then headed out to barter supplies, mainly hoping to get more primary mist crystals. Basic necessities were already plentiful for him. He thought over which acquaintances owned mist crystals and would be open to trading. A few promising candidates came to mind. He grabbed a supermarket shopping bag and stuffed 20 protein bars inside. 2 enhanced military-issue straight daggers hung from either side of his waist. He slipped 2 intermediate mist crystals into his trouser pockets and took off the black full-body wraith raincoat, storing it safely away. Its unnatural dark look and constant cold aura were best kept hidden from other people. Once ready, he walked downstairs and stepped outside. His first stop was the home of Han Xueqing. The female doctor at a dozen minutes' walk brought him to a 2-story house enclosed by a wall and courtyard, secured behind a pair of iron gates. He could not see inside. Knock, knock, knock. He tapped on the metal gate. Moments later, a cool, crisp female voice spoke from within. Who is it? What do you want? Dr. Han, this is Chun Hao. I live not far behind the village chief's house. We met at the chief's place a couple days ago. He gave extra context to reassure her. I've come hoping to buy some medicine. Could you open the gate? Step back a little, came her sharp reply. Chun Hao obeyed. The gate creaked open a narrow gap. A figure inside observed him carefully, then pulled the gate wider. Come in. Chun Hao lifted both hands and held up his shopping bag to show it held goods for payment. He stepped inside under her watchful gaze. This was his first time visiting Dr. Han's home. Stone tables and chairs sat in the courtyard. Bamboo baskets held drying medicinal herbs. Large flower pots grew vegetables and green onions. He avoided staring too openly, not wishing to leave a bad impression, and shifted his gaze toward Han Xueqing. Tall and slender, she wore a tattered white lab coat. Dr. Han, I was wondering if you have any medications that can boost physical development, such as steroids or growth hormone preparations. Price is not an issue. I recently got some high-energy, high-nutrition protein bars. 1 bar supplies all the nutrients and energy an average adult needs for an entire day. Han Xueqing studied the young man standing before her. He had an average build, neither skinny nor heavy, standing around 180-odd centimeters tall. His demeanor was uncomplicated. There was no trace of calculating cunning or hidden malice beneath an honest-looking surface. Most importantly, he looked neat and well-kept. As a doctor, she was naturally particular about cleanliness, so he earned a little goodwill from her. I do not have the medications you are asking for, such as anabolic steroids or growth hormone. Han Xueqing shook her head. I cannot tell what you intend to use them for, but those are synthetic, industrially produced pharmaceutical compounds. Without pre-existing stockpiles, there is virtually no way for a single person to manufacture them under current apocalyptic conditions. Right now, all I have on hand are herbal remedies for fevers, colds, stomach upsets, disinfection, and wound healing. Han Xueqing gestured toward bamboo baskets in the courtyard filled with fresh plants and dried rootstocks. Chun Hao showed no great disappointment. Truth be told, he had not held high hopes from the very beginning. His real reason for coming was to obtain mist crystals. In that case, never mind. Dr. Han, would you happen to have spare mist crystals? I am willing to trade with you using these protein bars. Every word I say is true. One bar meets an adult's full-day nutritional requirements with balanced nutrition. To show good faith, I will give you one bar to try first. Chen Hao pulled a plastic bag open, took out a protein bar sealed inside white plastic wrapping, and held it out to her. Han Xueqing accepted the bar with obvious doubt. It was roughly 4 centimeters thick and more than 10 centimeters long, solid and plump. Inert gas must have been sealed inside. Its white multi-layer composite packaging felt sturdy and premium, nothing like cheap single-layer plastic film. When she tore open the wrapper, a rich, milky aroma drifted through the air. Han Xueqing swallowed hard. She could barely remember the last time she had smelled anything rich and savory. Though her medical skills let her trade for food, what she usually received were hard biscuits and dry rations. She could also gather wild vegetables around Blackstone Hill, using her botanical knowledge. Yet those were all plain plant-based food. Living entirely on such a diet had worn her down, and she felt she had lost quite a bit of weight recently. Before she realized it, she had already taken a bite. A mild, subtly salty whey protein flavor spread across her tongue, pleasantly sweet without cloying. Crunchy nut fragments mixed with soft, chewy filling. After swallowing, a faint creamy aftertaste lingered pleasantly in her mouth. She found herself eating bite after bite. Only after several mouthfuls did she stop and carefully set the rest aside. Chen Hao watched quietly as she ate, cheeks stuffed full. Gone was her usual cool composure. Han Xueqing looked slightly embarrassed once she regained her senses and gave a sheepish smile. You must think poorly of me, but your trade goods are genuinely impressive. Sick people often pay me with mist crystals for consultations. For most survivors, food is far more valuable than mist crystals, so I do have some stockpile. What sort of trade are you proposing? Chen Hao's hopes rose. He ventured a proposal. How about 2 protein bars for 1 mist crystal? 3. I will accept 3 bars per mist crystal, and I will keep trading with you whenever I get extra mist crystals later. Han Xueqing could no longer resist the appeal of such high-quality food. She was tired of surviving solely on foraged greens. She also thought about old lady Su Honghua, who had once saved her. The elderly woman's health was already frail, and poor food and rest had left her growing weaker. Very well, I will take 4 mist crystals. Chen Hao did not haggle. He still possessed plenty of these bars. Producing more was not difficult for him. Wait here a moment. Han Xueqing turned and walked inside the house to fetch the mist crystals. It seemed she maintained a decent reserve. Months had passed since the apocalypse began. Sickness was commonplace, so building up a stockpile made perfect sense. Shortly afterward, Han Xueqing returned holding a small pouch, which she shook lightly without speaking. Chen Hao nodded, counted out 12 protein bars, and laid them on the stone courtyard table. He did not count the trial sample toward the transaction. He took the pouch she handed over, checked its contents, and nodded in satisfaction. Han Xueqing quickly stored away all the protein bars. Both sides were satisfied with this exchange. Chen Hao cared little for such resources, while Han Xueqing was astonished by his easy, generous attitude. Giving away so many premium protein bars without hesitation suggested he owned substantial reserves. Still, she wisely refrained from prying into his background. When their trade concluded, Chen Hao hesitated and decided to ask about the Longshan survivor base. Dr. Han, have you heard that a group of people will arrive in Blackstone Hill today? Han Xueqing looked confused. Before the apocalypse, she had worked at the City No. 1 hospital with outstanding grades. Yet limited seniority kept her out of influential inner circles. She had no reliable channels for outside news. Please tell me what you know, Mr. Chen. She switched to a more respectful form of address. Chen Hao knew his standing in her eyes had improved. Following a terrible accident at Longshan survivor base that killed many people, refugees will pass through Blackstone Hill sometime this noon or afternoon and stay overnight. They are organized and armed with firearms. Even though they are only stopping for one night, we should stay vigilant. Once they arrive, try not to go outdoors, and do not sleep too deeply at night. Chen Hao said nothing about the terrifying black fog monsters. Warning her would only cause unnecessary fear without helping her prepare. He lifted the hem of his jacket and laid a standard-issue military tactical straight short blade onto the stone table. Holding up his empty palms to show he meant no harm, he spoke. You live alone here, and danger can arise unexpectedly. This military-grade short blade is well-made and superior to most civilian knives. It is light enough for a woman to wield comfortably. Keep it for self-defense, as a token marking our future cooperation. He pushed the knife across the table toward her and turned to leave. Wait, Mr. Chen. Chen Hao turned back, puzzled. I do not know exactly what physical enhancement or recovery medicines you seek, yet certain herbal tonics boost qi and blood and greatly improve physical condition. Ginseng, astragalus, Codonopsis, Pseudostellaria root, Angelica, Polygonatum, and others fall into this category. I will keep an eye out for these ingredients whenever I go herb gathering. Great excitement washed over Chen Hao. He had fixated on rare exotic treasures and overlooked ordinary medicinal tonic herbs. Could these herbs become extraordinary celestial-grade medicines after being enhanced by his system panel? The thought filled him with anticipation. He stepped quickly toward Han Xueqing. Taken aback, she watched as he gently took her hand and placed a mid-tier mist crystal into her palm. This is a mid-tier mist crystal. The ones you traded me earlier are low-tier. Compare them later. Mid-tier mist crystals hold far greater power. I have verified their effects firsthand. Low-tier mist crystals merely repel black fog monsters, while mid-tier ones can injure or even kill them. Han Xueqing flinched and pulled her hand away quickly, feeling unsettled under his direct gaze. I understand. Thank you. I will honor our agreement about medicinal herbs. Good. I shall take my leave. Chen Hao walked away and closed the gate behind him. He still had other errands and needed to finish everything before noon. Han Xueqing stared blankly in the direction he had gone for quite some time before regaining focus. She understood better than anyone how hard survival was for a lone woman in the apocalypse. As Blackstone Hill's only doctor, most locals treated her decently, and the village chief offered some protection, yet nobody had ever looked out for her as sincerely as Chen Hao just had. She held up the mid-tier mist crystal between two fingers for inspection. It was noticeably larger than low-tier mist crystals and contained far more silvery luminous substance, confirming his claims were most likely truthful. She tucked it securely inside her clothing. Her attention then shifted to the tactical blade resting on the stone table. Chen Hao says this is a military issue. I cannot imagine where he acquired such equipment. She picked it up. It had noticeable but manageable weight. Drawing the blade from its sheath, she saw its total length was under 25 centimeters, balanced for both slashing cuts and stabbing thrusts. Matte alloy steel formed clean, sharp lines. The edge was tough and razor-sharp, with serrated teeth along the back of the blade for emergency use. Its spear-shaped tip delivered strong piercing power. A black non-slip nylon handle fit comfortably in the palm, with a window-breaking pommel at the end and an integral steel handguard protecting against accidental cuts. It looks rugged, but it suits me far better than a scalpel. A spark of genuine excitement crossed her fine oval face. She swung the blade a couple of times, practiced a few simple stances, then sheathed it and tucked it inside her white doctor's coat. Following Chen Hao's advice, she intended to stay indoors. She sat down to write notes describing the identifying features of each medicinal herb he wanted. Meanwhile, after leaving Han Xueqing's house, Chen Hao headed straight towards Song Dang's dwelling. As one of Blackstone Hill's few technically skilled residents, Song Dang definitely owned mist crystal reserves. Given Song Dang's personality, he would have heard nothing about the incoming Longshan refugees. Chen Hao planned to warn him. This was not because they shared deep friendship. Song Dang's chlorella-derived nutrient bars were genuinely valuable. Though Chen Hao could create comparable food through his own enhancement ability, working with Song Dang was more convenient. He also needed Song Dang to help him gather mist crystals. Directly trading enhanced goods with many different people would draw unwanted attention. Chen Hao reached Song Dang's place and knocked, calling softly, "Brother Song, it is Chen Hao. I have come to buy supplements." The door opened shortly afterward. Song Dang looked as scruffy as ever. He glanced sideways at Chen Hao and drawled lazily, "You come to trade, yet you keep using that code word. What is that about?" "It is our secret signal to stop imposters pretending to be me tricking you. Given how well we get along, you cannot be too careful," Chen Hao replied casually. To his surprise, Song Dang took his words seriously. "You are right. I don't need to stay cautious. You think things through well." Chen Hao told Song Dang about the approaching refugees from Longshan base, again omitting mention of deadly black fog monsters. Song Dang simply nodded, then asked a question. "From your description, those Longshan people have substantial influence. Even after the apocalypse, they maintain connections with other survivor settlements. Their destination must be comparatively safe. Have you considered tagging along and trying to join them?" Chen Hao possessed his enhancement panel and wanted nothing to do with large crowded survivor groups. Staying among masses risked exposing his special ability and left his safety out of his own hands. Naturally, he did not share the real reason with Song Dang. "I would like to, honestly, but I have no connections, no background, and no specialized skills. Even if I carried valuable supplies, I could not defend them. They would probably not accept me. Even if I somehow got in, I would end up at the absolute bottom of their hierarchy, the first to be sacrificed whenever danger strikes. Staying in Blackstone Hill gives me far more freedom and safety." Song Dang's lethargic eyes brightened. That is sharp reasoning. I feel exactly the same way. Deep down, Song Dang had been debating whether to leave. And Chun Hao's logical response helped settle his mind. He resolved to remain in Blackstone Hill and live quietly. Our village is small, yet smaller means greater safety. We also sit close to a mist crystal vein, giving us real prospects. Water supplies are reliable. Only food and everyday goods are scarce. Still, we have the village chief to rely on. He spoke half to Chun Hao and half to convince himself. Chun Hao ignored his comment and asked directly, Brother Song, do you have any mist crystals to spare? I want to purchase some. Song Dang answered without hesitation. I have some. They cannot be eaten or drunk, and there are few practical uses for them. What are you offering in exchange? Chun Hao pulled one protein bar out of his bag and held it up so Song Dang could clearly see its high-quality composite wrapping. Song Dang narrowed his eyes, and Chun Hao knew he had captured his interest. Honestly, these are outstanding survival supplies. High-energy, nutritionally complete protein bars. A single bar satisfies all daily energy and nutritional needs for an adult. Taste it for yourself. He handed over the bar. Song Dang tore the wrapper open skeptically and experienced the same positive reaction Han Xueqing had. He was thoroughly impressed. I want these. What are your terms? He sounded eager. Chun Hao slowly held up an okay gesture. My remaining stock is limited. Once these are gone, there will be no more. Brother Song, I treat you like family, so I am offering you a good but firm deal. 3 protein bars for 2 mist crystals. No bargaining. He put on an expression of genuine reluctance, as though parting with the bars pained him. Song Dang trusted his show of hesitation. He genuinely liked the protein bar, and he was poor at haggling, so he agreed immediately. Goods and mist crystals changed hands, and both parties felt they had gotten a good bargain. The transaction complete, Chun Hao took his leave and returned home. He tallied his gains from the outing. He had spent 20 protein bars and obtained 8 low-tier mist crystals. Additionally, he had given Han Xueqing 1 military-grade short blade and 1 mid-tier mist crystal. He still kept 2 more short blades, 3 mid-tier mist crystals, 8 low-tier mist crystals, plus his shadow raincoat. Among everyone in Blackstone Hill, including the incoming Longshan refugees, Chun Hao believed he possessed the highest chance of surviving encounters with black fog monsters. He checked his cartoon-styled wristwatch. It was 11:30. Time was drawing near for his appointment with the village chief. He grabbed several bottles of drinking water and his 3 remaining mid-tier mist crystals and headed toward village chief Hu's house. Arriving at the gate, he knocked and lowered his voice. Village chief, it is Chun Hao. Please open up. The door opened. Hu Hujing stood before Chun Hao dressed neatly in formal Western-style clothes. His hair was carefully styled with pomade into a 3/7 side part. Pulling off such a polished appearance in an apocalyptic world without running water or electricity demonstrated just how capable and well-connected the village chief truly was. Come inside. Hu Hujing stepped aside. Chun Hao entered. Once the door was closed behind them, Chun Hao placed 2 pre-agreed 500-milliliter bottles of drinking water on the stone table in the courtyard. Village chief, here is the compensation we agreed upon. Regardless of how negotiations turn out, you deserve payment for your trouble. Hu Hujing nodded with satisfaction. He thought highly of this young man. Sensible, polite, and intelligent, easy to communicate with, unlike many other difficult villagers. I have spoken to people from Longshan Base on your behalf. They do possess what you want. I can introduce you to them, though whether you successfully complete a trade depends on your own negotiation skills. Chun Hao wasted no time. He set an egg-sized black crystal, his trump card mid-tier mist crystal, onto the stone table. Over their previous interactions, he had formed a solid impression of Hu Hujing's character. He disliked beating around the bush and hated wasting time. He acted honestly and fairly in local trades and enjoyed a solid reputation. Trusting him still carried risk, yet trust always required someone to take the first step. Hu Hujing's gaze locked firmly onto the mid-tier mist crystal. He instantly recognized its immense value as a genuine strategic life-saving resource, vastly superior to low-tier mist crystals. No number of low-tier crystals would convince most people to give up 1 mid-tier specimen. Even influential figures inside Longshan Base held very few of them. Mid-tier mist crystals only formed deep within mist crystal veins, impossible to mine in large quantities under present conditions. Hu Hujing himself only owned 1 mid-tier mist crystal, issued to him because higher UPS tasked him with observing and studying the local mist crystal vein. He could only apply for another once he could prove the previous one had been used in genuine mortal danger. He forced his eyes away from the crystal and spoke plainly. This is extraordinarily valuable. Whatever goods you hope to acquire are worth far less than this crystal. Chun Hao's mental prediction was confirmed. The village chief knew exactly what mid-tier mist crystals were and owned one himself. His gamble had paid off, and he could proceed with his full plan. I appreciate your frank advice, village chief. I am nobody in this broken world. If I tried to trade this mid-tier crystal directly with the Longshan people, I would be walking straight into danger. At best, they would exploit me with outrageous pricing. At worst, they would rob me of the crystal entirely and even threaten my life. That is why I hope you will conduct this trade on my behalf. This mid-tier mist crystal shall be your payment. You may decide the exact negotiation approach and terms. My only requirement is to receive a complete set of Special Forces body armor. As a deposit, I will leave these 2 bottles of water with you. He set the remaining 2 500-milliliter bottles down on the stone table, waiting quietly for the village chief's decision. Hu Hejing did not disappoint Chun Hao's expectations. He nodded at once and spoke plainly. I have no reason to turn you down. Your reward is appealing, and your attitude is sincere. I will bring what you require to you this afternoon. Hu Hejing had no intention of breaking their word. Blackstone Outpost was a small place. Any major incident would quickly become public knowledge and ruin his standing. Besides, certain things could not be accomplished by him alone. He still had a mission to fulfill here. Nor did he consider conspiring with refugees from Dragon Mountain to rob Chun Hao. There was no guarantee who would end up with the goods. Why take huge risks when he could secure a surefire gain? Most importantly, his given name bore the character for upright, and that defined who he was. He watched Chun Hao walk away, then began weighing how to negotiate with the Dragon Mountain refugee convoy to maximize his own benefits. Time slipped by. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a convoy of 3 vehicles rumbled slowly toward Blackstone Outpost from the west, kicking up thick clouds of dust. Leading the column was a military off-road vehicle. It had a wide, low-profile armored hull finished in matte camouflage, slanted bulletproof windshields, long-travel independent suspension, generous ground clearance, and central inflation run-flat tires. Most striking of all, a heavy machine gun was mounted on its roof weapon station. The middle vehicle looked like an ordinary sedan, yet it was a heavily armored limousine. It sported matte black paint, a retro vertical slat grille, round lantern-style headlights, a standing red flag emblem, an extended long wheelbase, and rear coach doors. Its dignified, understated silhouette revealed no overt military features. From afar it looked just like a premium civilian luxury car. Bringing up the rear was a military cargo truck. 6 heavy, deep-tread olive-green tires churned up dust. It had a sturdy flat steel cab with a crash bar welded to the front. Its high-sided cargo bed was fully covered by a waterproof camouflage tarpaulin, secured tightly with ropes. Though small in number, every vehicle was top-tier hardware. Even someone ignorant of automobiles could tell this convoy represented extraordinary firepower and status. The convoy rolled into Blackstone Outpost and stopped outside village chief Hu Hejing's house. A soldier in camouflage climbed onto the weapon station of the lead off-roader, manning the heavy machine gun and scanning for threats. 10 armed soldiers jumped down from the cargo truck's bed and fanned out around the vehicles to set up a defensive perimeter. Only then did the driver's side door of the armored limousine open. A tall, square-jawed man decked out in full combat gear stepped out. He walked to the rear passenger door, tapped on the window, waited for the one-way glass to roll down briefly, exchanged a few words, received approval, and pulled the rear door open. 2 people climbed out of the limousine, 1 man and 1 young woman. The man was in his late 50s to early 60s, dressed in tailored dark formal wear. He carried the solemn, unyielding bearing of someone long accustomed to authority. Coupled with the surrounding security detail, it was obvious he belonged to society's upper echelons. Both before and after the apocalypse, a man few dared approach casually. He nodded toward the square-jawed bodyguard, then helped the young woman step out behind him. She was in her early 20s, with fine, fair features and a well-proportioned figure. Remarkably for the end-of-the-world setting, she was spotlessly clean, her clothes almost brand new, and she wore subtle makeup. No sooner had she set foot on the ground than impatience showed on her face. "Father, how much longer until we reach the provincial capital survivor base? My body is stiff from sitting in the car all day. I haven't had my usual nourishing delicacies, and I feel run down. I still need to complete my skincare routine today. If this keeps up, my appearance will suffer." A fond, weary look crossed the authoritative man's face. "Kur, be patient. We will arrive tomorrow. Times have changed. We have countless matters to consider." "Very well, but this place is so shabby. I'd rather wait inside the car, father." With that, Jiang Kuter climbed straight back into the vehicle, leaving her father Jiang Yuanlong standing outside alone. Jiang Yuanlong sighed helplessly. closed the car door, and turned to the square-jawed man Su Dong. Dong, come. Let us meet Doctor Who. Yes, Commander Jiang. Su Dong gestured. Four soldiers stepped forward. Two took positions beside the limousine, while two led the way ahead of Jiang Yuanlong. Su Dong followed behind him, rifle ready, remaining vigilant. Minutes later they reached Hu Huzhing's residence. Hu Huzhing had already opened the courtyard gate and waited at the entrance. He still wore a neat suit, his hair styled in a 3/7 side part. Seeing his guests arrive, he stepped forward and saluted. Commander Jiang, welcome. Conditions are humble here, please bear with us. Come inside. He stepped aside, revealing a stone table with teapot and cups laid out in the yard. Jiang Yuanlong walked in and sat on a stone bench. Hu Huzhing promptly poured him a cup of hot tea. Jiang Yuanlong lifted the cup and sipped. Huzhing, have you arranged everything we discussed over the shortwave radio? Everything is ready, Commander Jiang. 11 separate residential buildings, most with intact doors and windows. One central building is surrounded by the others. I can show you around shortly. Jiang Yuanlong set down his cup with a satisfied nod. You always deliver reliable work. In that case, leave follow-up arrangements to Dong. He turned towards Su Dong. Confirm tonight's lodgings with Doctor Who. Tell the men to prepare supper as soon as possible. After eating, they will stay 2 or 3 persons per house. Understood. Su Dong answered crisply. Jiang Yuanlong turned and headed back toward the limousine. 2 guards immediately moved to flank him. Watching him depart, Hu Huzhing struck up a conversation with Su Dong. Dong, you look far more muscular. Have you grown taller since we last met? A rare smile appeared on Su Dong's square jaw. He flexed, his uniform stretching tight over bulging muscles. Blame the research scientists. They injected me with gene enhancement serum made from raw materials you supplied. Honestly, I resisted at first, but I had no choice. You can see the result. I lost my hair, yet I grew far stronger. Now I can knock an ox down with one punch. He removed his helmet, revealing a completely bald, shiny scalp. Hu Huzhing clamped a hand over his mouth to hold back laughter. Please do not misunderstand. I received professional training. I seldom laugh, yet this is hard to contain. Laugh all you want. I am long since used to it, Su Dong said resignedly. Seeing the moment was right, Hu Huzhing brought up the black fog monster that had destroyed the Dragon Mountain survivor base. Su Dong's expression darkened at once. That creature was terrifying. Human-shaped, wreathed in green light and black smoke. It could shift between solid and intangible states. Gunfire and artillery barely affected it. Only mist crystals could drive it back briefly. Anyone hit by its green light grew weak or lost consciousness entirely. Worse still, it possessed a degree of intelligence. It enjoyed tormenting people, watching living beings struggle under its green glow. We only survived by sacrificing many comrades, holding out until dawn before scattering and fleeing Dragon Mountain. Hu Huzhing frowned. Could that monster track us here? We cannot know. To lower the odds, we split into 5 groups fleeing in separate directions. Statistically, the chances of it finding our party are slim, Su Dong replied. I see. One more thing, Dong. Do you have an extra full set of special operations protective gear? You want that? I have spare sets, though they will not come free. For primary mist crystals? No, for is far too low. After some haggling, Hu Huzhing obtained the complete tactical gear for 5 primary mist crystals plus 2 bottles of mineral water. Compared to the intermediate mist crystal Chun Hao had promised him, it was an excellent bargain. For Su Dong, heavy casualties at Dragon Mountain had left surplus combat gear. Trading spare equipment for those supplies was highly profitable for his side as well. Both men felt they had struck a fantastic deal. Su Dong summoned a soldier, who fetched the tactical kit from the military truck. Goods and payment changed hands. Afterwards, Su Dong followed Hu Huzhing to inspect the assigned accommodation. It was nearly 4 in the afternoon. Fewer than 3 hours remained until sunset. Time was tight for cooking and repairing broken doors and windows. Once inspections concluded, Su Dong took his leave and set his men to work. Hu Huzhing returned home, picked up his newly bought Special Operations Protective Kit, and walked straight toward Chun Hao's house. Hu Huzhing knocked on Chun Hao's door. Chun Hao, open up. I've brought what you asked for. Hearing the familiar knock from the 2nd floor, Chun Hao hurried downstairs and unlocked the door. Hu Huzhing stood outside holding a bulging waterproof nylon camouflage storage bag, which he handed over. Chun Hao took hold of it and was surprised by its considerable weight. This must weigh close to 10 kilograms, he thought to himself. He set the bag down on the ground and unzipped it fully. Every piece of the complete full-load tactical assault set came into view. Lightweight composite ballistic helmet with headset and buffer padding, tactical vest, Front and back silicon carbide hard ballistic plates, 2 side ballistic panels. Flexible ballistic neck guard plus deltoid shoulder protectors, ballistic groin and abdominal padding, elbow guards, shin guards, impact-resistant knee pads, tactical gloves, flame-resistant balaclava, and fastening straps. More than a dozen components covered the body from head to toe, fully outfitting the wearer for combat. Chunhao was thoroughly satisfied. He pulled an intermediate mist crystal out of his pocket and pressed it into Hu Hajing's palm, shaking his hand warmly. He thought the village chief looked immensely agreeable. Even his distinctive 3/7 side-part hairstyle struck him as rather likable. Village chief, you deliver outstanding results. This intermediate mist crystal is yours. I am confident it is in good hands. Hu Hajing awkwardly pulled his hand free, subtly wiping it against his clothing. He examined the intermediate mist crystal, confirmed it was genuine, and nodded happily. The transaction is complete. Dusk draws near. I shall head home. Safe travels, village chief. Keep the 2 mineral water bottles I left as a deposit. Consider them a little bonus. Hu Hajing's mood brightened further, nodded once more, and departed. Watching his retreating figure, Chunhao got busy. He zipped the storage bag shut and stowed it carefully under his bed inside his second-floor shelter. Before darkness fell, he double-checked doors and windows for gaps, took care of personal needs, then returned to his makeshift second-floor safe room. He put on his phantom raincoat and quietly waited for nightfall. I wonder whether trouble will break out tonight. Let us hope everything stays peaceful. Elsewhere, Hu Hajing returned home, securely bolted his courtyard gate, walked into a corner of his inner room, and lifted a concealed metal panel, climbing down into a hidden basement. The basement was compact. It held a desk and chair set, a sofa for resting, cardboard boxes stuffed with compressed food rations, and stacked cases of bottled mineral water. On the desk sat a gray-green man portable shortwave radio. Main unit, battery pack attached, hand mic resting beside the display, collapsible whip antenna leaning against the table edge, cables neatly organized. Hu Hajing was not merely passively waiting for outside contact. He possessed equipment to reach out actively. He sat behind the desk, opened a metal box from a drawer. Inside lay over 10 primary mist crystals plus 1 intermediate mist crystal. He took several primary mist crystals, taped them evenly onto the underside of the metal hatch, and placed more around the sofa. He kept his original intermediate mist crystal together with the one obtained from Chunhao close to his person. Then he sat down and began writing notes by flashlight. Meanwhile, among the Dragon Mountain refugees, soldiers divided tasks and quickly readied their temporary quarters. They pulled coarse black cloth sacks from the military truck. The cloth looked unremarkable, yet it emanated a faint, cold aura, similar to Chunhao's phantom raincoat, but far weaker. If the cold aura of the soldier's cloth rated as 1 unit, Chunhao's phantom raincoat registered at 10 or even 20. There was no comparison. Sunset approached. Su Dong clapped his hands to gather the soldiers' attention. Men, follow the original plan and disperse to your assigned houses. Wrap yourselves in the cold, aura black cloth after dark, and keep noise to an absolute minimum. You have heard these instructions many times. Dismissed. The soldiers scattered. Su Dong walked over to the armored limousine. Commander Jiang, night is coming. Lodgings are ready. Please come with me. Jiang Yuanlong and his daughter Jiang Kuter stepped out of the car. Jiang Yuanlong carried a silver, gray hard shell briefcase and wore new black garments. Jiang Kuer wore matching black clothing and carried nothing. As soon as she got out, Jiang Kuter spoke. Father, darkness is almost here. Let us get somewhere safe quickly. I do not wish to be found by those black fog monsters. Very well, everything shall be as you wish. Jiang Yuanlong turned towards Su Dong. Lead the way. At once, Commander Jiang. Su Dong walked toward a 2-story rural house. Soon all 3 had gone inside. Commander Jiang, you and Miss Kuer will occupy the main bedroom on the upper floor left side. All upper floor doors and windows have been sealed. The main bedroom is fully lined with cold aura black cloth, and primary mist crystals have been placed around for extra defense. Safety measures are in place. I will stay in the ground floor bedroom beside the stairwell. Send for me at any time. Thank you for your vigilance tonight. A Dong. Kuer, let us go upstairs. Jiang Yuanlong led his daughter upstairs. He soon found the main bedroom on the left, its doorway draped with cold aura black cloth. He lifted the fabric, opened the door, and gestured for Jiang Kuer to enter first before stepping inside and closing the door. He shone his flashlight around, verifying that windows were sealed and covered with the special cloth, and that primary mist crystals had been placed around the room. Satisfied, he turned to Jiang Kuer. Make do here tonight. You may sleep on the bed, but keep your black protective clothing on. Jiang Kuer pouted. Fine, father. She lay down straight onto the bed. Jiang Yuanlong sat in a chair, set his silver, gray briefcase on his knees, typed in the passcode, and unlocked it. Most of its interior, held in elastic mesh pockets, was filled with mist crystals of varying sizes. 5 egg-sized intermediate mist crystals were among them, and this represented what remained after the disaster that befell Dragon Mountain. It explained why Dragon Mountain had sustained a large survivor community and relative prosperity before its fall. Alongside the crystals sat 2 sealed glass tubes secured in anti-slip slots. Under flashlight light, swirling gray, black, and dark, green suspended liquids sat separated inside, not mixing with one another. As he stroked the glass tubes and felt their icy aura, greed, longing, and hatred flickered across Jiang Yuanlong's face. It was this strange liquid recovered near the suspected black fog source that had drawn the terrifying monster to Dragon Mountain, forcing him to abandon the base and flee toward the provincial, capital survivor stronghold. Yet its potential power was so tempting he would sacrifice almost anything. According to experiments run by Dragon Mountain scientists, humans who could merge with this liquid without losing sanity would achieve unprecedented evolution. Superhuman strength, accelerated tissue regeneration, greatly extended lifespans, theoretically even immortality. The researchers had named its source fluid, the wellspring of evolution. Curse that black fog monster. With just a little more time I might have succeeded. Even with his self-discipline, Jiang Yuanlong could not suppress bitter thoughts. Building Dragon Mountain Base had cost immense human labor and material resources. He would never easily find another opportunity to command a settlement of comparable scale. Established survivor hubs already had entrenched power structures that would shut him out. Unless he forced his gaze away from the source fluid, sighed, and took out his 5 intermediate mist crystals. He closed the briefcase. He gave 2 intermediate mist crystals to Jiang Kuer for self-defense and kept the remaining 3 on his person. Dusk deepened, black fog spread outward, and night fell, the domain of the black fog monsters. Strange howls and uneven footsteps echoed from outside. Jiang Yuanlong slowed his breathing, leaning back against the chair and remaining completely still with his eyes shut. Time slipped by slowly. He could not tell if 3 hours had passed or dawn was moments away. Half asleep, Jiang Yuanlong jolted awake amid a burst of gunshots. Filled with apprehension, he flicked on his flashlight and swept the beam across every corner of the room. Nothing seemed out of place. He double-checked the scattered mist crystals around him. None were glowing. Only then did the tension drain slightly from his rigid frame. Quietly standing to his feet, he walked over to the bed and roused Jiang Kuer. "Father, it's the middle of the night. What's?" She mumbled sleepily before Jiang Yuanlong clamped a hand over her mouth. "Shoo, keep your voice down. That creature is most likely here." Jiang Kuer stiffened instantly, falling uncharacteristically obedient. She nodded tightly, drawing her strange black outer garment tighter around her body, then draped a cold, somber black cloth over her head, hiding herself completely. Jiang Yuanlong let out a helpless sigh at the sight of his daughter, hiding like an ostrich. Moments later, a shrill scream cut through the air, and the gunfire ceased. Strangely, Jiang Yuanlong heard no sound of other mist monsters being drawn toward the commotion. The once noisy outdoors had fallen utterly silent at some unknown point. It was as if the mist monsters feared something terrible, choosing to stay motionless and quiet by unspoken agreement. Or perhaps every creature that dared make a sound had already been slain. It's definitely that monster. The same one that destroyed Longshan Base back then. It's always been alone, always just that single abomination. Fear flickered sharply across Jiang Yuanlong's face. He thrust both hands into his pocket, clutching the intermediate mist crystals, gripping them so hard his knuckles whitened. Knock, knock, knock. A soft knock echoed against the door. Jiang Yuanlong nearly leaped out of his skin from fright. On the bed, Jiang Kuer curled into a tight ball beneath the black cloth, trembling violently. "Commander Jiang, the creature has arrived." I spotted a green glow through the crack in the window. "Several of our men have been discovered already. Please stay silent and do not make any noise whatsoever." Recognizing Su Dong's voice, Jiang Yuanlong's hammering heart sank back down from his throat. He touched his back, finding his shirt soaked cold with nervous sweat. A few more short bursts of gunfire and pained screams rang out, before silence swallowed everything once more. The air hung thick with silence, dread, nervous strain, and utter helplessness. Jiang Yuanlong suffered terribly in his anxiety, his mind conjuring graphic visions of himself being brutally slaughtered by the mist monster. Suddenly, An eerie green light seeped through the window gap and spilled across the dark cloth covering Jiang Kuo. Gunshots and furious shouts from Su Dong erupted from the ground floor shortly after. But Jiang Yuanlong knew their efforts were futile. If firearms and gunpowder could harm the beast, he would never have been forced to flee Longshan Base in the first place. Sure enough, the noises downstairs died out after a short while. Anxiety twisted and churned relentlessly inside Jiang Yuanlong's chest. Damn it. If it wants my life, let it come take it. I'll die standing before I beg weakly. It's just a tragedy for my daughter. She should have gotten to live a full life and experience all the good this world has to offer. He stared fixedly at the door, not daring to blink a single time, swallowing hard against the dry lump in his throat. He wondered why the monster had not broken in yet. A faint flicker of reckless hope rising within him that it had somehow overlooked his hiding spot and moved on. The silver mist crystals lined along the right wall of the room abruptly burst with blinding white light. Jiang Yuanlong reacted as if burned, stepping backward rapidly to put distance between himself and the wall. He had overlooked a critical detail. These mist monsters could shift between physical and incorporeal forms. They had no need to break through the front door at all. He spared a quick glance toward his daughter. Jiang Kuo lay perfectly motionless now, so still she might have appeared lifeless. The blinding silver glow from the crystals lasted merely a second, before being snuffed out by an invisible force. In the next instant, sickly green luminance flooded the room. A tall, gaunt humanoid figure wrapped in roiling black smoke materialized out of thin air, its entire frame shimmering with unearthly green radiance. It possessed no flesh or blood, merely a human silhouette bound together by writhing black smoke and suffused with eerie green luminescence, leaking out through gaps in the haze. A frigid, deathly aura permeated every inch of its form. Every remaining mist crystal in the room flared with silver light at once, erecting a barrier to repel the green glow. Silver and green clashed like fire and water, inherently incompatible forces. Yet the green brightness surged violently an instant later, snuffing out all the silver luminescence in an instant. The smoke-wreathed humanoid advanced slowly toward Jiang Yuanlong, its green aura blazing brightly. It showed no urgency to kill its prey immediately, seemingly savoring the terror and despair blooming in its victim. In the final moments before death, "Damn you, monster! I'll fight you with everything I've got." Having endured the torment in silence long enough, Jiang Yuanlong chose to strike back. He pulled 2 intermediate mist crystals out from his pocket, clamping one firmly in each palm. As the crystals ignited with brilliant silver radiance, a luminous silver shell wrapped around his body, shielding his mind and body from the corrupting effects of the monster's green aura. The bedroom was cramped with little room to maneuver. Launching his assault without warning, Jiang Yuanlong closed the distance to the smoky humanoid in the blink of an eye. He raised both clenched hands and struck toward the creature's head in a classic double temple strike. If I can press these mist crystals directly against its body, they will definitely wound it. Adrenaline surged through his veins as the gap between his hands and the monster narrowed, spurring him to push his speed even faster. I can pull this off. Right now, I stand a real chance. His palms were inches from colliding with the creature's skull when the green humanoid seemed to curl its smoky features in a mocking sneer, stepping backward by a single pace. That tiny movement turned a sure strike into an unreachable target. No, carried forward by his own momentum, Jiang Yuanlong could not halt his movement in time. His 2 crystal-wielding hands slammed hard against each other, a sharp jolt of pain shooting up his forearms. One of the mist crystals slipped free from his grip and clattered onto the floor. The smoky entity stepped forward and kicked Jiang Yuanlong harshly, sending him sprawling across the floor. Green light washed over his body the moment contact was made, and he felt his vitality and mental vigor draining away. The sensation resembled staying awake for 3 full days and nights straight before forcing himself to sprint for miles on end. Overwhelming physical exhaustion tangled with mental fog, leaving him completely paralyzed, unable to move even a single finger. Despair, terror, and a desperate longing to cling to life crushed his spirit entirely. Tears streamed down his face as he broke into ragged, frantic pleas for mercy. "Spare me, please. I'll do anything you command if you let me live. I'll serve you faithfully for all eternity. I swear I will never betray you." The green humanoid gave no clear sign of comprehending his words, but its amusement was unmistakable. The greater its prey's terror, the more the monster reveled in the moment. The smoky edges of its face stretched into a grotesque, wide grin. beams of green light spilling outward to paint a monstrous, twisted maw across the wall. It reached down, lifting Jiang Yuanlong clean off the ground with one hand, preparing to torture him slowly to death. Then, from his crumpled, tear-streaked posture as a helpless captive, Jiang Yuanlong drove his hidden hand forward in a sharp, piercing thrust, shoving his last concealed intermediate mist crystal deep into the creature's smoky torso. A burst of searing silver light erupted instantly. Aag! The monster let loose a blood-curdling shriek of agony, flinging Jiang Yuanlong roughly aside. Its smoky limbs tore into its own chest in a frantic attempt to extract the crystal, the silver glow scorching its smoky flesh and sending plumes of black smoke billowing from its hands. Even through the burning pain, it wrenched the crystal free and hurled it behind itself. A single intermediate crystal alone could never inflict fatal damage. The creature's green aura naturally counteracted most of the mist crystal's silver energy. But the point-blank contact had carved a basketball-sized cavity of burnt emptiness straight through its torso. Such a wound would prove instantly lethal for any living human being. But this thing was never human to begin with. Churning black smoke flowed rapidly to fill the hollow wound, fresh green luminescence flooding the damaged section. To repair the injury, after only a heartbeat, aside from a slight fading in the brightness of its smoke and green glow, the monster appeared wholly unharmed once more. Witnessing this futile attack with his own eyes, Jiang Yuanlong sank into total, genuine despair. He had discarded his dignity to feign surrender and lower the monster's guard, hiding his final crystal to land a critical blow, only to leave nothing more than a superficial injury. With no remaining avenues for survival, an eerie calm settled over him. He pushed himself slowly upright on the floor, waiting passively for death to claim him. His gaze drifted sideways and landed on the huddled shape hidden beneath the black cloth, his daughter Jiang Kuer, still curled tight and shaking in terror. Without the slightest hesitation, Jiang Yuanlong strode forward, ripped the dark covering off his daughter's form, and shoved her trembling body hard toward the green smoky monster. Jiang Kuer let out an ear-splitting scream of fright as she flew forward with her arms pressed tight against her chest. Just before colliding with the entity, the two intermediate mist crystals clutched in her hands burst with blazing silver radiance. The monster recoiled immediately, flooding its body with intensified green light to neutralize the crystal energy. Seizing this narrow window of distraction, Jiang Yuanlong snatched up his gray metal briefcase and bolted out the open door at a dead run. It was the fastest, most frantic sprint of his 50 years of life. If I can just reach that vehicle, if I make it there, I might still get away. The image of his armored anti-explosion sedan burned bright in his mind. Once I get behind the wheel and drive off, I stand a real shot at escaping. All the other mist monsters have cleared out from this area, and dawn is nearly upon us anyway. Lady Luck will protect me again, just as she has a dozen times before. He shouted silent encouragement to himself as he ran. The armored vehicle sat merely a dozen meters outside the building, and the sacrifice of his daughter had bought him precious seconds. For a fleeting moment, it seemed Jiang Yuanlong might actually escape with his life. The green smoky humanoid paid no heed to the screaming girl, opting instead to phase through the physical wall in pursuit of the fleeing man, streaking after him as a blurry green shadow. It closed the gap in mere seconds. It materialized into solid form directly in Jiang Yuanlong's path, without resorting to the slow, draining aura torture this time. A brutal open palm strike sent the man flying into a brick wall with a sickening impact. Ugh! Jiang Yuanlong crumpled to the ground, blood pouring from his mouth as searing pain racked his entire body, folding him into a hunched, pained heap. Wait, can we come to some kind of truce? He clung to one final shred of desperate hope. The monster's smoky face remained devoid of any emotion as it closed in step by step. With a casual swat, it batted the gray briefcase flying out of Jiang Yuanlong's reach. It knelt down, wrapped one smoky hand around his throat, and squeezed its grip steadily tighter. As Jiang Yuanlong's vision blurred from suffocation and utter despair, the monster bit clean through his neck, severing his head entirely. Commander of Longshan Base, one of the rare survivors to possess primal fluid and hold the key to transcending ordinary human limits, a shrewd, decisive survivor of the apocalypse willing to sacrifice his own flesh and blood to preserve his own life. Jiang Yuanlong breathed his last in that moment. The green smoky entity let out a deafening, horrifying roar, tossing the lifeless body aside carelessly. It walked over to the discarded gray briefcase, forced the container open with brute strength, and retrieved 2 glass vials filled with primal fluid. It bit through the glass casing and swallowed the fluid inside in one gulp. The monster's aura surged violently, the green luminescence shrouding its body blazing far brighter than before. After a long pause spent absorbing the fluid's power, the entity's form faded into smoke once more, speeding away into the distance as a dark green streak. Every remaining survivor within Blackstone Ridge clearly heard the gunfire and the monster's terrifying roar that night. Not a single person dared investigate the source of the commotion. Every living human unanimously halted all unnecessary movement, doing everything possible to mask their presence and blend into the shadows. Inside a locked, sealed storage room on the second floor of a rural private residence, Chun-Hao lay quietly on a bed, completely covered head to toe by a shadow-proof raincoat. He had initially grown confused by the sudden lull in the usual racket made by the mist monsters, only for gunshots, human screams, and the monster's ferocious roar to follow right after. Knowing something catastrophic had unfolded, unease gnawed at his mind. He had received advance warning of potential trouble through an arrangement with village chief Hu Hujing. If that really was the legendary horrific mist monster that wiped out Longshan Base, Chun-Hao swallowed hard, pulling the shadow-proof raincoat tighter against his body as its characteristic cold aura washed over his skin. Both hands closed firmly around a pair of intermediate mist crystals. As the minutes ticked onward, however, no danger breached his hiding spot. He pulled out his cartoon tiger wristwatch to check the time. 6 o'clock in the morning. He let out a long breath of relief. The tense knot of anxiety coiled in his chest finally loosening after an entire night of vigilance. It should be safe now. I just hope the other survivors made it through the night unharmed. For now, I'll catch up on some sleep and go survey the aftermath once I wake up. Chun-Hao rolled onto his side and quickly drifted off to sleep. The perspective shifts to village chief Hu Hujing. He appeared entirely unaffected by the night's terrifying events, currently hunched over his desk scribbling notes about everything that had transpired after dark. I truly hope Commander Jiang managed to pull through this ordeal. Capable people grow scarcer with every death in this wasteland. I hope Su Dong survives as well. He finished his written record soon after, stretching his stiff limbs before lying down fully clothed on the sofa to rest. By 10 o'clock the next morning, Chun-Hao woke naturally. He ate a single protein bar and drank some plain water for sustenance before donning the full standard special combat assault gear he had traded for with the village chief. After fumbling to properly secure each piece of equipment, he adjusted his combat helmet and jumped in place a couple of times to confirm his mobility remained unimpeded. He fastened the military-grade dagger forged by his system panel to the leg sheath on his assault uniform pants, striking a pose he thought looked imposing and sharp. Satisfied with his preparedness, he nodded to himself. Time to head out and check what came of last night's fight. If that monster really was the one responsible for Longshan Base's fall, anyone it targeted is almost certainly dead. All their firearms, protective gear, and other valuable supplies are free for me to claim now. Chun-Hao set off at a brisk pace, following the direction the noises had originated from the previous night. It took roughly 12 minutes for him to reach a house, with its front gate violently broken open. He pressed himself against the doorframe to scan the premises carefully. No living figures or sounds drifted from within the building. Only then did he step cautiously into the structure. He spotted bullet impact marks embedded in the wall shortly after entering and followed the trail to a bedroom with its door hanging wide open. Stepping inside the room, his gaze landed on a motionless corpse draped in matching full special combat assault gear, alongside a large dark cloth laid beside the body on the floor. The soldier lay prone in the center of the room with no visible wounds anywhere on his body. Not a single scratch marred his helmet or protective armor. The exposed skin of his face and limbs had faded to a sickly ashen gray hue. There was no blood, no signs of physical trauma or external violence. It appeared as though the victim's soul had been torn cleanly from his body, leaving nothing but an intact, hollow shell behind. The eerie stillness of the scene sent a chill crawling up Chun-Hao's spine. Chun-Hao stepped forward silently, using the toe of his boot to roll the face-down corpse onto its back. The man's hands remained clamped rigidly around an assault rifle. The firearm featured a matte black industrial finish with a compact bullpup design, measuring less than 75 centimeters in total length and lightweight enough for easy shoulder carry. An integrated hollow carrying handle ran along the top receiver with a lowered baseline housing aperture sights. Diamond-shaped front sights with protective rings sat at the muzzle, flanked by short tactical rails compatible with flashlights and laser modules. It was unmistakably a QBZ-95, one automatic rifle. Chun Hao muttered a quiet word of solemn respect under his breath before prying the stiff fingers loose from the rifle grip. It marked the very first time he had touched a human corpse. The flesh felt rigid yet limp to the touch, slow to rebound when pressed, a texture he could only compare to raw pork purchased from a market. He inwardly apologized for the crude comparison, even if it was an honest impression of what he felt in the moment. He lifted the QBZ-95, one rifle into his hands, and inspected its build closely, quickly growing troubled. This was his first time handling a firearm in both his past life and his current apocalyptic reality. University military training had never included live firearm exposure for him. What's the first step when picking up a gun? I think it's supposed to be checking whether it's loaded. Uncertain of the proper procedure, he pointed the muzzle safely toward an empty section of the floor. Pressing the magazine release catch with his thumb, the magazine dropped free from the weapon. He lifted the magazine for inspection to find the follower plate empty, with no ammunition inside. He racked the charging handle backward forcefully to lock the bolt open, peering through the ejection port to confirm the chamber and barrel were completely clear of rounds or spent casings. With the magazine still detached, he squeezed the trigger once, hearing only the crisp, dry click of the hammer striking the firing pin with no cartridge present. Glancing at the scattered, empty bullet casings littering the bedroom floor, Chun Hao sighed in resignation. He patted down the soldier's uniform thoroughly, but found no spare ammunition magazines or rounds on the body whatsoever. Must mean ammunition supplies are extremely scarce at Longshan Base, he reasoned to himself. Weapon manufacturing plants shut down months ago when the apocalypse struck. Even with their initial stockpiles, those reserves would have dwindled to nearly nothing after months of constant use. An unloaded rifle was functionally no better than a wooden club for ordinary survivors, but Chun Hao possessed his strengthening system panel. He collected every spent bullet casing scattered across the floor and stowed them securely in his pant pockets before turning his attention to the dark cloth beside the corpse. He brushed his fingers across the fabric, met with a faint cool sensation against his skin. This must be another defensive textile developed by Longshan Base, similar to my shadow-proof raincoat, though its protective properties are far weaker by comparison. He folded the cloth neatly and stored it away, debating whether to strip the intact combat suit off the deceased soldier for his own use. I'll leave it be. Honor the dead by letting him rest with his gear on. In truth, he wanted to claim the usable equipment for himself. Dead people had no need for protective gear after all. The messy, unpleasant process of peeling a uniform off a stiff corpse deterred him, and he framed the decision as an act of basic decency to ease his own mind. Chun Hao marked the location of the residence mentally, taking only the QBZ-95, one rifle with him as he exited the room. He planned to search the remaining buildings in the area for more supplies and resources,